Hey guy, how are you all beautiful people are doing? Hope all of you are doing fine, and yes, this is the next season of creating Naruto comics in Naruto world. Akaban was graduated from the University of Arts and Design in the 21st century, then suddenly traversed into the Naruto's world. By bringing my knowledge of arts and my love of Naruto comic, I decided to recreate Naruto comic here. So let's start without any delay. Akaban was suspicious, feeling that the old woman, Uzumaki Mito, had used the ability of observation haki with the Uzumaki family perception ability to predict the future, but he didn't know that Uzumaki Mito had no such ability. She just feels this way. This feeling is extremely mysterious and abstruse, and even her was unable to express it in words. Just being with Akaban and Tsunade, and then talking to these two kids, she suddenly got this intuition. It's kind of like a woman's sixth sense. To be honest, Uzumaki Mito didn't understand it herself. She wanted to try other things, but she didn't feel anything. On the other hand, Tsunade was sweating profusely from the training of observation haki. She seems to have no talent in this aspect. After training it for a long time, she did not see any improvement, and her appearance was a little drowsy, as she tried to feel the feeling that her grandma Mito said. Of course, she is not without perception ability, on the contrary, Tsunade's perception ability is not weak. However, her perception comes from chakra's derivation, which made it hard for her to feel what her grandma told her. But Uzumaki Mito is different. Her ability comes from skills on the one hand, and blood on the other, and she has a deep understanding of perception, so she has mastered the observation haki in the second half of Akaban's guidance. Tsunade's understanding is too superficial. If Akaban is here, he will definitely understand why. Everyone has their own field of specialization. Looking at Tsunade, it doesn't look like she specializes in sensing. It is estimated that the armament haki is more suitable for her, but Akaban didn't yet master the armament haki, so naturally there is no way to teach others. As for Akaban, he struggled for a while but put the matter down. He trusted and awed Uzumaki Mito. Because from all aspects, Uzumaki Mito had already seen a lot of clues, but she did not say anything, but at some point took the initiative to help him with cover. This is trust. Even though he had some special secrets, she didn't ask any more and gave full trust, so Akaban believed her. Besides, with my own strength, do I still need to take these into consideration? Understanding this again, he was relaxed. Originally there were some comic tasks that he should complete today, but now that they have been handed over, he is currently free. Akaban pondered for a moment and used Flying Thunder God Jutsu to go to the reserve department. The preparatory department has not yet started school, but many people who are free have already started training, such as the Taijutsu specialty class. Taijutsu special class is mainly Taijutsu. And their teacher, Orochimaru, can be counted as half a teacher. He will often come to check the physical progress, training damage and other data, and then make more efficient and healthy training programs for these students. When he arrived at the preparatory department, Akaban saw 4 children holding a book and studying there. This is the Taijutsu specialty class, with a total of 4 people. What are you looking at? Akaban came closer and saw that a group of people had a lot of comics in their hands. Might Dewey was holding the book of Naruto and he was reading the scene where Might Guy hit Kai's aim, while the others were reading One Piece. Orochimaru sensei said that Dewey will be able to open the gate of view soon. So he let us first study the taijutsu suitable for Dewey in the 6th door. The children explained. Gate of view. Damn. That is the 6th in the 8 gates. Is Dewey's talent so high? Akaban was a little shocked. Might Dewey stood up and bowed, and then explained excitedly, actually, I can open the gate of view now, but the load is relatively large after turning it on. So Orochimaru-sensei told me not to use it, and to wait until I get stronger physically after using it again. Devil fruit and 8 inner gates. This is also an idea. In One Piece, common animal devil fruits are uncommon, such as those in advancing cities. With the powerful effect of 8 inner gates, it seems to be a bit tricky. Akaban observed for a while. Orochimaru arranged the task perfectly, and he could basically be a shopkeeper at ease, so he left without explaining anything. After returning, he was going to observe what Jiraiya was doing. In Jiraiya possession, there is his special kunai, and through his own kunai mark, Akaban can use Flying Thunder God Jutsu to move his shadow clone to the side of Jiraiya. Of course. Before that, he had to make the shadow clone change and disguise. Sending shadow clones consume less chakra than the main body, so even if Jiraiya is far overseas, he can still accurately transmit his shadow clone to the ship. Of course, sending his shadow clone was not just for a simple visit, but also for an important task. Yes, it's about the devil fruit. Of course, not bad fruit. For such an expensive thing, he didn't plan to let Jiraiya get it right away, otherwise, if he got the fruit he wanted the next day when he went to sea, it would be nonsense at all. The one he took is Chopper Devil Fruit. However, this fruit is not to be given away casually, but to find a place in front of them to grab a beast and let that beast eat the devil fruit in front of everyone. The appearance of alien creatures overseas can make others believe that the devil fruit was not produced by Akaban himself and that this beast was obtained by Jiraiya, so they can still obtain the human devil fruit. What a perfect plan! Akaban admires his ingenuity. However, when the plan was implemented, there was a slight accident when the teleportation was done and his clone appeared at the ship. It saw Jiraiya who was painting crazily while cursing Akaban. It's a bit embarrassing, but it's a small episode. The shadow clone saw Jiraiya not paying attention, so he quickly ran out of the cabin in an insect form. The endless sea. Is there an island in front? The shadow clone is not clear about it. The chakra assigned to him is not too much. If not for its chakra reserve being inconsequential, it would directly step on the water to know when he could find the next island. Therefore, he maintained his transformation and hid in the corner of the ship, quietly waiting for the opportunity. But not long after, he noticed an animal on the deck. It was a petrel. TL/N. Petrels are tube-nosed seabirds in the bird order Proceleratiformes. For more info, you can GG it. It seems to be lost with the main force. The petrel is a small seabird. Its offensive is not high, and it seems to be very tired. If he lets it eat the devil fruit, and it suddenly appears on the ship, then his plan works. Dealing with beasts is much simpler than dealing with humans. With simple genjutsu to control the petra bird, the shadow clone makes it come over obediently, and then throws the human devil fruit out and controls the petrel to peck on it. But after it peck on the devil fruit, nothing seems to have changed. The shadow clone froze for a moment and thought that it was a dud, but then he noticed that petrel's body began to change. Its 2 wings were strengthened, and it became a bit bigger, even looking a bit like hands. Not only that, its mental power is growing, and it seems that the effect of human devil fruit in improving intelligence is working. The shadow clone took a look, then used genjutsu to let it hide on the deck before it flew around, and it also used flying thunder god jutsu to send back a message, asking Akaban to cancel the shadow clone. The petrel started flying around. Its wings have become very powerful, and its feet have gradually grown larger, but within a few seconds, its body has become more than 5 or 6 times larger than before. At this time, the ninjas heard the movement and quickly captured it. At the same time the shadow clone dispersed and the illusion disappeared. Perfect. The country of river, Loketown. Yiwu inquired for a while and found that Kakuzu seemed to have left the town before she dared to come out to collect information. Today, she was sitting in the tavern reading the recently updated comics as usual, and an old man was sitting at a table by her side. He seems to be very new to this site, observing the surroundings. Yiwu took care of herself quietly, because the old man looked a little old, but he looked very healthy and he was definitely not an ordinary person. Old man, what do you want? I want some food and drink, besides. Why do you only have comics here? The old man frowned and asked. Araki Nara showed a gentle smile and explained patiently, I see that you are a foreign guest. The comics here have been bought by an adult ninja. And we have something to do with that adult, so we can save some. If you want to read it, you can get it at any time, it's free. Free. The old man was startled slightly, then turned his head and took a look, then got up to get a copy. This is the latest volume he hasn't read. Black Zetsu cursed secretly in his heart, this guy can read by himself, but what about him lurking in the shadows? Madara didn't consider his situation at all. When Yu glanced at the old man, her legs and feet began to tremble. Again. That feeling, it's here again. After having an experience, she understood in her heart that this guy is an unreasonable boss. Yu got up and planned to leave. But before she could take a step, the old man leaned in and said, Young girl, I don't seem to have read the book in your hand. Can I borrow the comics in your hand? Of course. Yu tried to control herself, then handed over the comic. The old man smiled gently and then said, I like to read One Piece, but some of them are not very understandable. For example, this swordsmanship, young people like you should be practicing swordsmanship. So can the swordsmanship from these books be trained in real life? Of course it's true, we samurai came to Loketown in hope to also learn it. Yu answered as she laughed, but deep inside she wanted to cry. At this moment, she felt that there was a tiger sitting next to her, ready to eat her. Ha ha ha, what this fellow samurai said is right. Like me, after arriving in Loketown, my three-sword style has become more mature. Many drinking guests laughed and chatted. The old man nodded slightly, looking thoughtful. If it's okay, eat slowly. Yu got up, preparing to continue the movement of leaving. However, at this time, she heard something shocking as what the old man said was, I know that the children of the Gecko family are polite. So sit down first and let's talk slowly. I still don't understand a lot. So I hope you can tell me more. Yu was terrified. She felt that the moment she set her foot on the Loketown, she was cursed by someone. It's the same with the man she first encountered in this place. She inquired about that man. And from the conclusion she got after asking, that man was probably the one who fought against the first Hokage. And now this old man. Although he is very old, this kind of oppressive force, without any murderous intent, but still makes her feel the suffocation of death. There is no doubt that this old man is even more powerful than that man Kakuzu. And such people can be counted on one's fingers. But she already met 2. What is bad luck? This is bad luck. What's your question? Yiwu sat down obediently. She knows she can't run, so it's better to see what the other party wants. Do you recognize Kurama Akaban? Yiwu shook her head. Madara smiled and said, it seems you recognize him. I heard that he has developed the skills in the Naruto comics, so can the abilities of One Piece be developed? I don't know this. Yiwu said bitterly. The person in front of her was terrible. He seemed to know that she was lying, so she decided to confide in some of the facts. Do you know his strength? Madara continued to ask. I don't know, his strength is unfathomable, far from what I can understand, but his genjutsu skills are very strong. Yiwu already vaguely understood the identity of the other party in her heart, so she spoke out the illusion. It's because this ability should be what the opponent is least afraid of. I am unaccompanied in the world. Why don't you help me and let your senior live with you for a while? Madara said with a smile. Yiwu wants to cry but without tears. What can she say? Can she decline it? Of course, she can decline it, but whether she can still see the sun rising tomorrow is not unknown. Yiwu is in trouble. Not long after, Orochimaru hurried to the comic shop. Yes, the body, not the snake clone. He was anxious. What? Tell me carefully what's going on. Looking at him like this, Akaban immediately understood that what Yiwu faced was not small trouble, but it might be life-threatening. Orochimaru then told the situation. He taught Araki Nara the skills of summoned snakes, so Araki can summon the snake clone of Orochimaru through summon techniques to achieve the effect of communication between the 2 places. Previously, another Chunin was in charge of this work, but with Araki, Orochimaru killed that slightly erratic Chunin. The point is not this, but that who Yiwu meets is none other than Uchiha Madara. After Akaban heard this, his scalp felt numb. Has Uchiha Madara stayed in the country of the river? But that's not the thing he should be worrying about first, but how to save Yiwu. What should we do? Orochimaru is a little anxious, and has lost his usual composure because that's Uchiha Madara. Madara not killing Yiwu means that he still needs Yiwu for the time being. I will go to the country of the river to save her depending on the situation. Akaban rubbed his temples. Although it feels like Madara harbored evil intentions, but Yiwu is a good friend, so he will do what he can to save her. Be careful, Madara's target may be you. After Orochimaru finished talking, he thought about it, and asked, the snake flow body substitution jutsu I developed is really useful. Would you like to learn it in case of accidents? Forget it, I have flying thunder god jutsu. Akaban quickly refused. Snake flow body substitution jutsu. Forget about the kind of tricks that open the mouths of outsiders and crawl out of them. It was a pity that Orochimaru couldn't sell it. Akaban thought for a while, looked back at the lounge, and then said, the comics in the lounge, please help me out to deliver it later. Also, about Hokage-sama, you can talk to him as I have no time to tell him. No problem. Orochimaru knew that the matter was urgent and did not intend to stay. In the next second, Akaban disappeared in the lounge and appeared on the mark in the Nakar River. After teleporting to the mark in the Nakar River, he listened for a few seconds, and then quickly set off for the country of the river. The reason for not teleporting directly. Although Yiwu has flying thunder god kunai in her hands, it's not a short distance from Konoha to Land of Rivers to Logue Town. and flying there would inevitably consume a lot of chakra. If Madara can get close to him in an instant like Hatake Sagaki, wouldn't he die before he can escape? For the sake of his life, he did not dare to teleport over. All the way to Loke Town in the Land of River, Akaban quickly found Madara's location through perception. He is in the tavern, unperturbed, very calm, and the flying thunder god jutsu mark appears on Madara. And throughout the Loke Town, he didn't feel Yiwu presence and Black Zetsu. Shit. Akaban took a deep breath, and with a thought, he then went to the Land of Wind without any delay. From what he knows, Black Zetsu will definitely use Yiwu to stir up the dispute between Konoha and Sand Village. But before he could walk a few steps, he saw Madara, which is exactly Madara's shadow clone. If you don't mind, how about sitting down and chatting with this old man? Madara said lightly. Sorry, I'm in a hurry. Akaban instantly turned into lightning. The fruit of thunder, accelerate and teleport. Even though Madara stretched out his hand to pull Akaban back with gravity, he did not succeed, because Akaban's speed was too fast and he was already out of his range. He glanced at the lightning in the distance, but he didn't catch up. With that kind of speed, he knows he can't catch up. What a fast runner, but I'll let you be active for a while. Anyway, my purpose is achieved, and the peace of Konoha and Sand Village will not last long. How can Orochimaru's snake clone hide from Madara's senses? In Loke Town, distinguishing Yiwu from the rest is easy. Of course, on one hand, Yiwu was very recognizable from her physical constitution, dress and weapons. Of course, Madara didn't intend to destroy the tavern where he found Yiwu. First of all, the food here is not bad, barely satisfying his appetite, and secondly, there are free comics to read. If it is destroyed, there will be no place where he can read comics for free. In addition, he was very curious about the leader of the underground forces in the Land of River and wanted to meet that guy because that person might have some connection with Akaban. To be honest, Madara is not very interested in destroying the Land of River, he just finds it interesting, especially at present he hasn't figured out what Black Zetsu wants to do, and he is afraid to take the next move. It's boring anyway, it's better to find something to do. Akaban didn't know Madara's thoughts, and he didn't have the slightest interest in understanding it right now. He just wanted to find Yiwu and bring the poor girl back to Konoha. Meeting Madara outside when she just wants to become stronger, her experience is too exciting. Chasing all the way to the Land of Wind, Akaban was fast, and it didn't take long to perceive the presence of Yiwu. If it hadn't been for the full release of his perception and observation haki, it might take him a long way to find her. The distance is very far, it will take a while. But Black Zetsu is never within his range. It seems that Yiwu was controlled by Madara, but since I gave her special training in the fantasy games, her resistance to genjutsu should be slightly higher than normal people. Akaban pondered while chasing. But after chasing for a while, he suddenly thought, if Yiwu was controlled by Madara's illusion, where would Black Zetsu go? The Sand Village. Damn. Akaban's face changed, and he instantly opened his Mangekyo Sharingan, followed by making a mark of illusions from the furthest distance and turning it into reality, and flew to the mark in an instant. Galloping all the way, he quickly sensed Black Zetsu's presence in advance by relying on his Thunder Devil fruit, and this guy came out with Shaman. Akaban did not use his Mangekyo with his Flying Thunder God Jutsu but directly used the Thunder Fruit to accelerate. Without the Thunder Fruit, his speed is indeed not fast. But today is different. Black Zetsu hadn't arrived yet on where Yiwu is, as Akaban had already arrived first. Seeing Akaban, Yiwu instinctively wanted to swing her sword and crescent moon dance. However, Akaban didn't care about her sword at all, and the sword that made contact with the lightning immediately paralyzed her. In the next second, after using the Yin Seal, release, Akaban immediately uses his Flying Thunder God Jutsu as he and Yiwu immediately disappear. After a few seconds, Black Zetsu with Shaman arrived. He knew that Yiwu had already run away, but he was not willing to look for her. The cooked duck flew. Facing an empty desert, he was extremely melancholy. What's the matter with this partner? Will his ninjutsu stop if they say yes? Foolproof. Damn. My plan is ruined again. Another question. After finally abducting Shaman, should he kill him or let him go back? With such an unreliable collaborator, Black Zetsu was in a bad mood, and in the end, he didn't send Shaman back as he killed him directly and then went to the country of River. He is very angry now. His plan was ruined because of Madara. After waiting for 1,000 years, waiting for a bird like Madara, does he have to wait for Madara to die and dig out his eyeballs? At first, Black Zetsu just thought of it because he is angry, but after a second thought, it seems to be a way. Madara is too smart, so it is better to wait for his death and wait for the next Indra reincarnation. He can afford it anyway. He lives longer than the Sage of Six Path, not to mention that senile Madara. Black Zetsu feels a lot more relaxed when he thinks this way. He is not as anxious as before. As long as he has the Rinnegan, he still has the final say in the future. People like Madara can die for all he cares. In the Land of Fire, Akaban put down Yu and leaned against the tree to rest for a while. Originally, he reserved part of chakra to dispel Madara genjutsu on Yu's, but now, it seems the genjutsu has been automatically dispelled, and her still being unconscious is because of Akaban lightning. Now that the chakra in his body is not enough to transmit back to Konoha, Akaban finds a beautiful place, sits down and blows the wind, watching the sunset, and recovering the chakra by the way. Yiwu slowly regained consciousness until the sunset was about to set. She was not lightly electrified, his hair was a little curly, and looked quite miserable. The most important thing was that she didn't know what was going on. The first thing she did after waking up was to jump up and run. Don't run away, we can go back to Konoha first. Akaban got up and put his hands on her shoulders, then active high-flying thunder god jutsu. Yiwu vision blurred. When she returned to her senses, she had already arrived at the Hokage building. Looking at the familiar scenery, she was in a daze. She gradually calmed down and remembered something. Land of Rivers, Uchiha Madara. Okay, let's go up and talk slowly if you have something to say. Akaban is very tired. After going upstairs, he immediately sat down in a chair and breathed a few breaths. Part of it was him pretending, but he was really tired. This trip is really not easy. Going thousands of miles to save Yiwu from Black Zetsu's hands. In addition, Yiwu has blood on her body. I'm afraid she has already killed ninja in the Land of Wind. Seeing Yiwu's dress, Hiruzen was taken aback for a while, then pointed to the seat and said, "Sit down and talk slowly, what is going on? Didn't I ask you to investigate the smuggling incident in the country of the river?" "My lord, I just went to the country by the river. I met the S-class rebel ninja who fought against the first-generation Hokage Sama. I lurked for more than a month before daring to come out to collect information. I just came out to the tavern and wanted to hear some news, but Madara sat there next to me." Yiwu talked about the matter from beginning to end. And Akaban silently listens to it. He knew Kakuzu's abilities, and he suspected that Yiwu was weird at the time. After thinking about it, it is not difficult to guess that Yiwu is from Konoha. If it wasn't for her face and Yiwu's impulsive tracking, it is estimated that Yiwu's heart would have moved that day. Yiwu did a good job on this matter without coming out. But who thought? Madara seems to have something to do with him after all. According to the words of Yiwu, Madara asked a lot about One Piece, such as Devil Fruit, swordsmanship and Heart Net. But Yiwu really didn't know. In the end, Madara lost interest, so he dragged her to the Land of Wind, just to see if Akaban would come to save her, but in the end, he didn't stop her desperately. Although Madara took the special kunai, it was only the shadow clone that blocked Akaban, and he didn't even use his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. He obviously makes concessions. Afterwards, Akaban also said what happened to him, ignoring the fact that he used his Mangekyo Sharingan to realize the imprint of illusion on the way, and only said that he had rescued her before Black Zetsu returned. After hearing this, Hiruzen fell into deep thought and then said, "I understand, Yiwu, you should not go there for the time being in the Land of Rivers. You don't need to investigate smuggling matters. In the near future, prepare well for the Chunin exam." "Yes." Yiwu bowed her head. "I'm going back too, I'm terribly tired." After Akaban said that, he stuffed a full pill into his mouth. He was really tired, not making excuses. "You have to rest first, this trip has been hard for you," Hiruzen said mildly without getting angry at Akaban. In terms of rules, it is not compliant for Akaban to go out and save others without reporting. But as he said in the comics, in the ninja world, people who do not follow the rules are called trash, but those who do not value their companions are not as good as trash. Akaban did what he knew he should do and did it. This is also the will of fire. P.S. This fanfic already entered its end, that's why I uploaded new fanfic. You can try it since it's also quite interesting. Facts have proved that exercise is quite good for people, at least this sleep until the next day so that Akaban refreshed in the morning. But if they really asked him to run a few laps around Konoha in the morning and before going to bed, he definitely didn't want to. I know, but I really can't change my laziness." Akaban got up to wash, took a rice ball and went out, as usual, saying that he was going out, but in fact, he used Flying Thunder God Jutsu to arrive at the lounge of the comic shop, and then released 4 shadow clones. This time, the Uchiha's clan came again. The gift looked precious. In the morning, he carried the package and waited at the sushi restaurant in front. And when he saw Akaban open the window on the lounge, he came to the door. During the special training, Uchiha Ryo's arrogance dropped a lot, and he saluted Kurama Yunlane first, and he would smile and show favor to the civilians who came to buy comics outside. In short, he is like a normal person now. "What are you carrying?" Akaban sensed his existence, walked out of the lounge, and then saw the package he was holding. "Senpai, this is a gift that the Patriarch ordered me to give," Uchiha Ryo said. "Is it to celebrate Uchiha Sasuke's return to the plot?" "This reason is simply too different, it is not the style that a patriarch should have." Akaban took it, opened the package and took a look. "Oh, it's a wood carving. There are still such powerful swordsmen in your clan." It was carved as Sasuke in white. As Akaban had a certain understanding of swordsmanship because of the exchange of 3 sword styles, so after a glance, he felt that the engraver must be a good swordsman. It's not from my clan. The patriarch asked a ninja named Kosuke to do it and carved this wooden sculpture. Kosuke. Akaban was startled slightly and remembered something about him in his mind. Kosuke Maruboshi, Konoha Eternal Genin. He really has different skills. This is simply a perfect figure, with the best details. After the face is painted, it looks like a character that jumps out of the anime. He pondered for a long time, and then said, I like this gift very much. Thank you for your kindness from your patriarch. Okay. After he finished his mission, Uchiha Ryo had already read a comic over there. It's just updated today. It is estimated that Uchiha's people are too busy to purchase the update. Just as the Senju family runs around a fixed route in the morning, for Uchiha, reading comics has become a daily demand, an essential spiritual entertainment and treasure hunting activity. Not every Uchiha can awaken their Sharingan. In fact, a large part of the Uchiha people are ordinary people. Otherwise, there would be no group of people reading comics every day to try to awaken their eyes. But obviously, they think too much. The evolution of eyes comes from emotional changes, and even the dramatic plot exposure in the front cannot awaken it. Basically, they are already hopeless. Akaban spits out Uchiha secretly in his heart and then continues to look at the wooden sculpture. Ninja version figure. In fact, he had a similar idea a long time ago, but he has never dared to implement it. Among the Konoha families who are good at swordsmanship are the Hatake and Gecko families, but if they asked them to carve a word with their swords, being beaten was his last concern, especially from the Hatake clan. For the samurai, their sword is an alternative partner. But it doesn't seem to be the time to think about this. Akaban sighed softly when thinking of yesterday's events again. Shaman was hit hard before, and his strength was severely damaged. Now it is very likely that he has been killed by Black Zetsu. Regardless of the result, this pot will most likely fall on Konoha. By the way, Akaban Senpai, Sajuke's style, is very popular now, and many people in the clan have begun to experiment with that style. Is it okay? Uchiha Ryo said when he saw it. Sajuke in white is really handsome in appearance. Akaban pondered for a moment, then shook his head and said, it doesn't matter, it's not a big deal. There is no patent for anything anyway, or else he will be sued. However, Uchiha's people are really in their second year. If you are not good at learning, you should learn from Sajuke in white with an open mind. He complained from the bottom of his heart, then turned his head and saw something. On the street, 2 or 3 ninjas in white walked past him. Most of these ninjas are those who just graduated from the special training camp, Genins, and some are guys who haven't even graduated from Ninja Academy. So their transformation jutsu is quite awkward. He can only say, Konoha's situation is strange. Uchiha Ryo finished reading the first half of the chapter, and Sajuke's scenes here are temporarily gone, so he showed obvious disappointment. Akaban did not look at him again and returned to the lounge with the wooden sculpture. Then with the use of Flying Thunder God Jutsu, he came to the Hokage office building. What happened yesterday is far from over. He walked upstairs and saw Yiwu's father Gecko Yaha. He was a shinobu who had been stricken with illness and was almost retired. When he saw Akaban, he was very excited. Akaban-kun, thank you, if it weren't for you, my child and family. Gecko Yaha kept saying thankful words. When he heard the news, he was extremely scared, and he was fortunate that his child could know Akaban, otherwise, he would not only face the death of his daughter but also the disaster of the entire sand village and his family. Uncle, Yiwu is my best friend, I just did what I should do. Akaban bowed slightly. Yaha, Akaban, you all sit down. Hiruzen pointed to the seat. Akaban coming here was beyond Hiruzen's expectations, but since he is here, he happened to have something to talk about. He pondered for a few seconds, looked at Akaban and Gecko Yaha and said, Akaban, today I got the news that the former second-generation Kazekage shaman has also disappeared. What? Gecko Yaha froze for a moment. He was suffering from illness all year round and he rarely paid attention to the outside world. Naturally, he didn't know that in Akaban's comics, their Kazekage had already died for several rounds. He glanced at Akaban and found that this kid seemed not too surprised. I came here to talk about it, but I didn't expect the news to have arrived. The night has passed, and the news has been sent to Konoha. It seems that the Sand Village is quite anxious and wants to find out the whereabouts of Shaman. But this is also normal. As the second Kazekage of the Sand Village, Shaman's contribution to Sand Village is not small, so his importance to Sand Village is very high. In addition, sending it first to Konoha. From another perspective, they have the deepest doubts about Konoha. Of course, Hiruzen knows this. He spread out the letter paper, which was sent by Ninhawk from Hidden Sand Village, so it was delivered to Konoha overnight. It says yesterday afternoon, Shaman disappeared mysteriously. Yiwu was under memory investigation in Anbu. We tried to find some clues from her memory, but you were there at the time. I want to hear your opinion. Hiruzen said solemnly. This matter must have something to do with Black Zetsu. At that time, I sensed that his presence overlaps with Shaman's presence, so I can be sure that he has the ability to control others. Akaban replied. Gecko Yaha listened to the side and did not make any comments. I see, Shaman should be controlled by him, or maybe he is already dead, and their next actions are likely to target Konoha. The tone of Hiruzen is very heavy, and it is not difficult to guess the follow-up actions after the mistakes in Black Zetsu's plan. However, it is useless even if they told this to the Sand Village because these all are open plots. So what if they know? Konoha forcibly rescued Uzumaki clan. Hidden Mist and Hidden Cloud must be dissatisfied. On the other hand, Hidden Cloud Village, as the second strongest ninja village, has been watching Konoha's position for a long time. The war can be described as looming. And the fuse was Shaman. He thought about this again in his mind, but there was no countermeasure. In the end, Hiruzen sighed, now we can only hope for their third Kazekage to calm down. But is it possible? He is young and vigorous. As a village leader, immaturity is likely to lead to the destruction of the entire village. They can shame us, and we can also announce the news of Madara, let the whole world know that Madara is not dead, and also him awakening the Rinnegan. Gecko Yaha said after indulging in a moment. It's useless. Seeing is believing and hearing is not. No one will believe our words. Hiruzen shook his head. He had discussed this plan with Danza, but in the end, he did not choose to implement it. In a short time, announcing the news will not only be believed by anyone but may change the attitude of Black Zetsu and Madara, which is not a good thing for Konoha. We can only see what the Sand Village thinks. Sand Hidden Village. A group of people sat together, but the atmosphere was extremely heavy. Their second Kazekage was kidnapped from the village, and they didn't even see the other side's shadow, and they didn't even know what method or process the other side used. This is the most humiliating thing in the history of Sand Village. Zack was angry but extremely calm, full of contradictions. Beside him, Ibizo read a piece of information. We found traces of Konoha's secret jutsu 3 days ago and found that it comes from the moon dance of the gecko family from the Konoha. Elder, we have studied these several times, and it must be Konoha. One Jonin said in anger. Kyo looked at Zack but did not express her opinion. Keisuke-sama, we can't let Konoha go, we must let Konoha's Gecko's clan give an explanation. Yes, we can't let the Gecko clan go. The rest of Sand Jonin clamored angrily. Enough. Zack patted the table angrily and glanced around coldly. Keisuke-sama, I think that the second Keisuke is probably controlled by someone, and the other side uses a method that is like disappearing out of thin air. From this point, Konoha with Flying Thunder God Jutsu is very doubtful. Kyo got up and bowed, finally expressing her thoughts. Elder Kyo, please continue. Zack nodded. He heard that Kyo clearly had a different view, and there must be a but behind her words. But everyone knows from the Gecko clan's lurking abilities that it is impossible for them to assassinate the second Keisuke at the border. Kyo glanced around, then took a deep breath. I suspect that a third party is instigating us to have a war with Konoha. In an instant, the audience was silent. Those Jonin looked at each other. They themselves had hatred with Konoha, and the clues all pointed to Konoha. Adding some comic factors, they immediately suspected Konoha's side. In fact, if it weren't for the Flying Thunder God Jutsu mentioned in the manga, everyone would never have known that Konoha had such a terrible space-time ninjutsu. However, Konoha did not ban comics. As everyone knows, this may also be deliberately planted by a third party, and the premise of the existence of a third party seems equally reasonable. But, who would do this? Personal guess, maybe it's an organization similar to Akatsuki. They are eager to have a war, and even expect our villages to use out Jinchuriki to kill us all at once. Ibizo said his analysis at this time. In fact, Kyo's words were also discussed and directed by him. Logically, these can be explained completely. After hearing this, the Jonin nodded, pondering one by one for a moment, and then they were puzzled. In that case, why are we holding this meeting? Shouldn't we find the real murderer in the first place? Elders, I understand what you mean. I see it turned out to be like this. Zack's eyes lit up, and he understood the meaning of Ibizo and Kyo. How can a fish be caught without bait? Besides, it is impossible to pass this matter, and it is not necessarily that they can't get some benefits from Konoha, so why not do it? Jiraiya, don't stare at that bird all day. You now even want to peek at a bird bathing. Are you still a human? A group of ninja caught Jiraiya outside the small room and kicked him. Jiraiya also repeatedly asked for forgiveness, and finally rolled and ran to the deck. After running away, he said unyieldingly, I am observing the ability of the devil fruit while studying the art of alien creatures. Do you know what art is? Damn art. Everyone rolled their eyes, but although they said that, a bug flew in silently. The Bakugan of the Hyuga clan was activated, the dogs of the Inuzuka family, etc., were all watching in secret. The petrel bird ate the human fruit, and after a day of adaptation, it has slowly mastered part of its abilities. It has already begun to transform into human. Not only that, but from its transformed appearance, she is still a female birdman, which is why Jiraiya also took a peek with interest. But what really shocked everyone was its origin. A strange bird came to their ship inexplicably and slowly transformed into a human form. Jiraiya, don't stare at that bird all day. At this time, a girl's voice sounded. I did not see. Jiraiya said innocently. He ran on the deck, so how can he peek? Dammit. At this time, another voice sounded. Everyone glanced at each other and then pointed inside the room. It's the bird. And it is learning from us. Of course, many summon beasts can do it just by talking, but the next second, the ninja of the Hyuga clan saw this bird flying around in the room and then opened the door with its weird wings. Creak. The door was opened. There is no doubt that the petrel bird that turned into a half-human half-bird was caught again. Although it has advanced intelligence, it obviously doesn't have the ability of ninjutsu, and it can / be done with a mere restraint. Everyone locked up the birds again and added a cage with a sealing technique. Then the group of ninja gathered again to discuss it. There is no doubt that there are devil fruits in the wild, so the bat devil fruit they were looking for may also exist in the world. Jiraiya still looked uncomfortable, but there was more thought in his heart. He has read the comics, and he knows exactly what power the bat devil fruit poses, and it's none other than immortality. Even if the rest of the people don't necessarily know its ability, they may not be able to control the temptation of the devil fruit. If he wants to get it, then he must be cautious and wary, and not let any outsiders or even creatures approach the fruit. Akaban, who is in Konoha, of course doesn't know what's happening on the ship. However, for the follow-up situation after redeeming the human devil fruit, his shadow clone made a comprehensive preparation before, and the genjutsu that was last on that petrel bird is not only as simple as controlling it to eat the fruit but also changes part of its memory, making it think that it ate the devil fruit on an island. Even if it possesses high-end wisdom, it will be convinced of the memory of when it was in its beast period, and the memory of the beast period is chaotic and unclear, so even the Yamanaka clan cannot find the truth. In this regard, Akaban is not worried at all, as he is more concerned about another thing now. The hidden sand village. What will those people do? Kyo and Ebizo have no lack of wisdom. Akaban will not underestimate them, but to Shinobi, the truth is often not important, and there are many times when the benefits of the truth override the truth. No one knows whether the Sand Village will declare war. In addition, once the declaration of war was declared, Konoha had no other choice but to also declare war. As a member of Konoha, Akaban is very worried. But he was just worried about it for a few seconds. Since it's useless to think about this kind of thing. The decision is still in the hands of Sand Village. If they really want a war, Konoha is definitely not afraid of things. As for Madara, the worst case is him redeeming the Rinnegan. If Madara summons the demonic statue of the outer path, he will then just summon it back. So there is no need for him to worry. Therefore, he doesn't think too much about it. Akaban took the wood carving and was about to talk to Kosuke about his handmade things. His knife craftsmanship of this wood carving can be said to be perfect, only the coloring has some problems, which affects the overall beauty, but this has nothing to do with Kosuke since it's the people from Uchiha who did poor work on it. This time he is going to talk to Kosuke about cooperating things. Kosuke Maruboshi used to be a subordinate of Senju Hashirama, and he has also learned a lot of secrets. Therefore, even though he was just a genin, his strength and status were not low. Even Akaban couldn't force a threat, so he could only negotiate well. If the other party does not agree, he can only give up. Kosuke lives in the civilian area of the village, and his home is easy to find. It is not far from Might Dewey residence, but Dewey is definitely not at home, and Akaban is not looking for him and walks directly to Kosuke's house. When he arrived at his residence, Akaban saw a man exercising a sword. Kosuke's dress is ordinary, and he carries a large pot on his back all the year round. Usually, he will be the one who cooks and prepares food in the team. But as soon as Akaban appeared, he found him out immediately. "Hello, Senior Kosuke, my name is Kurama Akaban. I can't afford to be called a senior, I'm just a genin." Kosuke was flustered. Akaban smiled and said, "I really didn't know your strength at the beginning, but thanks to this wood carving, I knew that our village still has a master like you, so you don't need to hide it, senior." As he spoke, he took out the wooden sculpture that he had been holding in his hand. When Kosuke saw it, he immediately recognized that it was a wood carving he had carved, so he couldn't help but pick it up and stroked its wood texture. But he showed a trace of regret. "The color is a little different. Senior, I am looking for you this time, it is also related to wood carving." Akaban bowed and saluted and stated his purpose. "And of course, it's about the creation of the wood carving. The cooperation method is equally simple, and the income is divided between 50-50. If he is not satisfied, he can adjust it. Comics are cheap, and everyone can afford them even if they are not a ninja, but that's not the case with figures. Therefore, a hand-finished wood carving is definitely a very high price." Kosuke did not answer but stared at the wood carving for a long time, and then he couldn't help but said with emotion, "Your comic, it's so good, but to think that wood carvings can sell for a price. And from your tone, the price should not be low, but unfortunately, I don't have any need for money." "Senior, anyone has a need for money. For example, you. Money does not have a need for you, but with it, you can set up a charity fund to support many orphans who lost their parents in the war, help families who lost their homes, and so on." Akaban had already thought about his excuses. Fame and fortune are not important to Kosuke, and he knows it, so he persuades Kosuke in other ways. A charity fund. Kosuke was stunned for a moment. In fact, his qualifications were not top-notch, but he was not bad, and he worked very hard, so he has today's strength. But he thought for a long time, and finally didn't think about what the charity fund is, but pondered the second half of Akaban's sentence. To help orphans and displaced families is to do good deeds. This is a way. In this case, you can make all my income into some kind of fund. Anyway, I don't need any money." "What?" Akaban was stunned for a moment. "So generous. It seems that it is not good to eat all the remaining benefits." After thinking about it, he said, "In this case, take out 70% of the total profit and set up a charity fund." It's not that Akaban wants to earn profit from it since money is just a number for him. But the remaining 30% will be distributed to all levels since the benefits of other people are already promised. Kosuke nodded in agreement, then Akaban put down a bunch of comics. "These comics will be given to Kosuke for free, so he can read more so that he can figure out the spirit and personality of the characters and sculpt more perfect figures." He didn't care about comics originally. However, after turning a few glances on the page, Kosuke couldn't help but open his mouth in surprise. Lowest ranking. A familiar term. Among the people who received the attention of the second Hokage, he is considered the lowest ranking, a level 1. After he started to read comics, the more he read it, the more I couldn't stop. Originally, Kosuke only planned to read one volume, and then continue to train his swords or go out to pick up quests, but after reading one volume, he was even more curious about the plot behind, so he continued to read. But when he saw the beginning and the ending of the plot in the Land of Waves, the more he became fascinated by it. Comics are not just stories, but the spirit of the characters. Naruto's strength and his sunshine deeply moved him, and the shouts of his dream seemed to sound from the bottom of his heart, touching the knot in his heart over and over again. After reading the Chunin exam, unconsciously, tears appear in his eyes. I'm sorry. He couldn't help but cry. The sin in his heart could never be redeemed. Especially with such a character as Kosuke. Once he makes any mistakes in the team, he will take many blame that is not his own. What touched him the most was the death of the third Hokage. Kosuke thought of his dead teammates, the second-generation Hokage after his death, and many ninjas who died in the war. At this moment, a voice rang from not far away. Hey, Kosuke, how long do you have to carry these on your back? Kosuke looked up and saw Hiruzen standing not far away. He opened his mouth, finally wondering what to say. Is it his fault? But what can he do? Because he is eager for quick success, he made a command that caused everyone to. Without waiting for him to think about it, Hiruzen continued to scold, everyone has mistakes, and I will make mistakes too. But just because of one mistake doesn't mean it's the end for you. Are you worthy of the teacher's training? Does he just want you to do these tasks? No, Kosuke had the intention to refute, but he looked down and saw the peaceful and contented expression of the third Hokage when he died, and he had nothing to say for a while. Yes. In the comics, the mistake of the third Hokage is that he let go of Orochimaru. If you really feel guilty and sorry for your former teammates, then make up for your own faults and use your rich experience to save more ninja in wars and missions instead of running from it. Hiruzen said loudly. He wanted to say these words a long time ago, but he had always been afraid that Kosuke had a grudge. But at this time, Kosuke was touched by the plot of the comic. And it was also the best time to convince Kosuke. Now Konoha is in a critical period, Konoha needs you. Critical period. Kosuke froze for a moment and looked up at Hiruzen. After that, Hiruzen recounted the story of the hidden sand village and Madara. Kosuke's expression changed drastically and his thoughts were also struggling. Being genin forever is his vow. But he also felt that Konoha really needed him right now. No, what Konoha needs is not genin Kosuke, but jonin with commanding ability. He opened his mouth and finally said, I will think about it again, let me think about it for a while. That's good. Hiruzen felt that Kosuke was not as determined as before. And this is a good thing. Originally, he just used his crystal ball jutsu to see what Akaban was doing, but unexpectedly discovered Akaban was visiting Kosuke, so he came to take a look. If he can solve Kosuke's knot, Akaban will have done a great job, even if the kid probably doesn't know what he has done. After that, Hiruzen left. Kosuke sat on the ground, thinking about the words just now. Think again, think again. It is not that Akaban is unaware that he is being tracked. He has great perception and also observation haki. So the third Hokage crystal ball jutsu can no longer avoid his perception. But what he was doing is not worth concealing. Since the third Hokage wanted to see it, he didn't bother doing anything. Of course. The third Hokage coming to Kosuke house himself exceeded his expectations. Back at the comic shop. Thinking about it carefully, he is not surprised if the third Hokage wants to invite Kosuke to come back. Since Kosuke is really strong. Although he is only a Jonin level ninja, as far as Konoha is concerned, his strength and combat experience are one of the very best, but his psychological endurance is a bit poor. Heart disease also requires heart medicine. In the comics, Kosuke has been sinking into regret for his whole life and has not been able to get out of the nightmare of killing his teammates. So he hopes in this life he can change. Akaban sat down and thought about the plot. After finishing the updates of One Piece today, the Sky Island chapter will officially end. After a boring plot, they will arrive at the part of Frankie, the City of Water 7. A very exciting story in One Piece. The most important thing is that in this episode, CP9 will bring out the Navy 6 style ability of the Navy, and there are also very powerful fruits such as slow fruit, frozen fruit and door fruit. And at this stage the appearance of ability is quite strong. Leaving aside the devil fruit, if he can redeem the 6th style of the Navy, and if it can be integrated into the Taijutsu of Konoha, it can greatly enhance the strength of Konoha. Especially with 8 inner gates. I hope Dewey can master it. Akaban was a little excited. Thinking about it. The 8 gates and Ox Devil Fruit and the Navy 6 styles, and if later he learns the armament Haki, won't Dewey become overpowered? There are a lot of people coming and going in comic shops today. The encounter between Sasuke and Sai made many readers very concerned. As soon as the comics were updated, they rushed to buy the comics. But looking at it, everyone cares about Sasuke and Sai instead of the main characters. Naruto at this time started to train his wind-style chakra nature transformation. To be frank, although Naruto's strength is very strong, and his talent seems to be very powerful, everyone still has a bad impression of his aptitude, and the only ones he is good at are the Shadow Clone and the Rasengan. But mastering wind-style nature transformation is different. Mastering the chakra nature transformation, Naruto can master a series of wind-style ninjutsu, and his battle method and ability will definitely be greatly enhanced. Not only that. With his Shadow Clone cooperating to speed up his speed of training, this kind of method was completely unexpected before everyone. Although the third Hokage later thought of this method based on Akaban, due to the characteristics of the Shadow Clone ninjutsu, he did not disclose this method but only revealed the secret that the Shadow Clone can accelerate the speed of training in the middle and upper ninjutsu class. Therefore, when this book was released, many ninjas tried this method of training using their Shadow Clones. And as a result, the hospital traffic increased significantly that day. In this regard, Akaban said that he would not take the side effects and needs of the Shadow Clone practice. He has clearly stated in the comics that someone will die. So what can he do? There is really no cure for a fool. However, the points income of these 2 days has decreased significantly. On the one hand, the ninja tasks began to increase. On the other hand, the second generation Kazekage of the Hidden Sand Village has disappeared. And the war is about to start. Many Jonins were sent out for missions to monitor the Land of Wind. That's why the flow of people has decreased a lot. Akaban thought about it for a while and used 6,000 points from more than 30,000 points in exchange for 5 points of mental power. With his current mental power, the impact of 5 points is not great, but it can somewhat relieve the strong fatigue caused by the dissipation of the 4 Shadow Clones at once. Speaking of which, I have updated 10 more chapters today. This update will involve the plot of Asuma's encounter with the undead duo, right? Akaban glanced at the manuscript of the clone, and then fell into deep thought. Asuma seemed to have not been born yet. Well, it's not a big problem. Thinking about it carefully, he even killed the third Hokage, and the mere Asuma was nothing, and there was no need to report. Since war was about to start, the third Hokage should have been very busy these days and has no time to read comics. So the next day, the moment after the comic came out, almost all of the Sarutobi family knew that Asuma's about to die, and only Sarutobi was still in the dark. Until the afternoon, when the office door was knocked. "Come in," Hiruzen said, then Danza opened the door and walked in slowly. He held two things in his hand, one was the information about the events of Yiwu, and the analysis of Kakuzu and Madara, while the other hand was a book of comics. "This is today's update. We have found out that the memory of Yiwu has been tampered, and we can be sure that Uchiha Madara controlled her with illusion on that day, and then let her enter the Kingdom of the Wind all the way, and killed several sand-hidden village ninjas at the border." Danza sat down unceremoniously. Hiruzen also read it while listening, frowning slightly after reading, sinking into his thoughts. There is not much information in Yiwu's memory, but it is especially crucial for them to know that Yiwu's strength is not weak, but to be honest, she is at most elite Chunin or special Jounin. In terms of genjutsu, few in the Konoha can resist Madara's control. With Madara's ability, it is easy to make a ninja like Yiwu avoid the ninja at the border, but Madara did not do so. So why is that? Hiruzen was a little puzzled. After thinking for a long time, a smile appeared on his face and said, "It seems that they are not on good terms." "Yes, and I think Madara is very wary of Black Zetsu. This action is probably a test of Madara." Danza's view is the same as that of Hiruzen. However, he had a meeting with the Anbu, and he thought of more than Hiruzen. He paused, and then said, "I think the Sand Village must be able to guess it too, but they are likely to still start a war." Hiruzen was silent for dozens of seconds and then nodded heavily. "Yes. Even if they know it, war is still inevitable, and the difference is only in scale. However, once the fuse of the war is opened, no one can predict what will follow." Hiruzen sighed and put this information aside. Konoha has nothing to do with this war. Others want to plant stolen goods, and the Sand Village vaguely wants to make a fortune. They can only cope with the changes, and soldiers will stop the water. But then, he glanced at the comic next to his eyes suspiciously and looked at Danza strangely. "Bring me comics." The relationship between Hiruzen and Danza is very good, but at the same time also very bad. Danza brought him comics. Isn't it a weasel giving a New Year greeting to the chicken? He thought to himself, is this book special? "Hiruzen, I know you are very busy lately, so I bought a book for you to relax." Danza smiled slightly. Hiruzen felt something wrong in his heart and took a look at the comic. There was no problem at first. Wind style, Rasengan. It turns out that Rasengan can still centralize nature transformation. If it succeeds, this ninjutsu will definitely become S-rank ninjutsu. During the period, Asuma also appeared on the stage, instructing Naruto training wind-style chakra. Everything was fine. However, in the next second, Hiden and Kakuzu appeared. He doesn't know why, but Hiruzen feels very upset. He turned page by page and then saw the plots of the 12 Guardians, Earth and Land etc., and the bad feeling in his heart became stronger and stronger. Sure enough, Asuma was dispatched. "Son, your path is narrow." Hiruzen sighed and basically saw the future of Asuma. In Kakashi's words, "Your future is only death." Hiruzen gave Danza a fierce look. Danza chuckled and stood up and said, I don't have any troubles in this regard, and I can't understand your feelings, but Hiruzen, you should pay more attention to Shinosuke and don't let tragedy happen. Get out. Hiruzen waved impatiently and couldn't help lighting up a cigarette and taking a sip. After his chakra weapon pot was made, Shinosuke left the village and his destination was basically the same as that of Asuma in the comics. Of course, there is no such thing as a Guardian 12 yet. His heart is very troubled. As the son of Hokage, allowing Shinosuke to be in danger outside, especially on the eve of this kind of war. Not every time can Ikeban save people from thousands of miles away. But if he let him come back, Hiruzen knows that this is basically impossible. Shinosuke is very persistent and has his own ideas, and it is impossible to follow his advice and come back. Shinosuke, I hope you can find the answer in your heart. Hiruzen stood up and turned to look at Konoha. All his love is dedicated to the village. As a father, Hiruzen knows that he is not qualified. ****. Because it takes a little later to get the comic elsewhere in Land of Fire, Shinosuke, who is listed in the Protection of Ninjas from Daimyo Prefecture, saw the latest comic very late. After reading it, he was silent for a long time. After today, Shinosuke is officially 14 years old. His birthday is still not celebrated with his father, but he is used to it, and it has been the same for the past 14 years. But Shinosuke, happy birthday! A woman rushed out from behind with a cake in her hand. Shinosuke turned his head back, his face was full of consternation. Sister Rias, why are you? From your ninja profile, I know that it's your birthday today. Well, it's not pretty. Don't be surprised. Rias has signature red hair. She is a member of the Uzumaki clan, but she is not keen on training and ninjutsu. Compared to fighting, she prefers a peaceful life without waves. In her hands, there was something that he couldn't tell whether it was a cake or something. Thank you, Sister Rias. Shinosuke had some tears, his voice choked unconsciously. This is the first time in his memory that he heard birthday wishes and gifts from someone other than his mother. Hey! Let's go to the yard to eat it, I will pick you some fruits. Rias took him to the yard. As soon as he went out, the loud happy birthday sounded. The children of the Uzumaki clan and teenage ninjas are all here, all with smiles on their faces, and in the middle are the fruits and snacks they collected. Thank you, everyone. Shinosuke was very moved, and at the same time seemed to experience the jade mentioned by Ikeban in the manga. What is jade? Not a daimyo, nor Hokage, but something that I care about, the person I want to protect. Villagers, citizens, and peace. As long as these are what I want to protect, there is no such thing as identity or status. Shinosuke got the answer in his heart, and at the same time, he had the happiest birthday in his life, and Rias seeing it also felt happy. It is not that Ikeban is unaware that he is being tracked. He has great perception and also observation haki. So the third Hokage crystal ball jutsu can no longer avoid his perception. But what he was doing is not worth concealing. Since the third Hokage wanted to see it, he didn't bother doing anything. Of course, the third Hokage coming to Kosuke house himself exceeded his expectations. Back at the comic shop. Thinking about it carefully, he is not surprised if the third Hokage wants to invite Kosuke to come back. Since Kosuke is really strong. Although he is only a Jonin level ninja, as far as Konoha is concerned, his strength and combat experience are one of the very best, but his psychological endurance is a bit poor. Heart disease also requires heart medicine. In the comics, Kosuke has been sinking into regret for his whole life and has not been able to get out of the nightmare of killing his teammates. So he hopes in this life he can change. Akaban sat down and thought about the plot. After finishing the updates of One Piece today, the Sky Island chapter will officially end. After a boring plot, they will arrive at the part of Frankie. The City of Water 7. A very exciting story in One Piece. The most important thing is that in this episode, CP9 will bring out the Navy 6 style ability of the Navy, and there are also very powerful fruits such as slow fruit, frozen fruit and door fruit. And at this stage the appearance of ability is quite strong. Leaving aside the devil fruit, if he can redeem the 6th style of the Navy, and if it can be integrated into the Taijutsu of Konoha, it can greatly enhance the strength of Konoha. Especially with 8 inner gates. I hope Dewey can master it. Akaban was a little excited. Thinking about it. The 8 gates and Ox Devil Fruit and the Navy 6 styles, and if later he learns the armament Haki, won't Dewey become overpowered? There are a lot of people coming and going in comic shops today. The encounter between Sasuke and Sai made many readers very concerned. As soon as the comics were updated, they rushed to buy the comics. But looking at it, everyone cares about Sasuke and Sai instead of the main characters. Naruto at this time started to train his wind-style chakra nature transformation. To be frank, although Naruto's strength is very strong, and his talent seems to be very powerful, everyone still has a bad impression of his aptitude, and the only ones he is good at are the Shadow Clone and the Rasengan. But mastering wind-style nature transformation is different. Mastering the chakra nature transformation, Naruto can master a series of wind-style ninjutsu, and his battle method and ability will definitely be greatly enhanced. Not only that. With his Shadow Clone cooperating to speed up his speed of training, this kind of method was completely unexpected before everyone. Although the third Hokage later thought of this method based on Akaban, due to the characteristics of the Shadow Clone ninjutsu, he did not disclose this method but only revealed the secret that the Shadow Clone can accelerate the speed of training in the middle and upper ninjutsu class. Therefore, when this book was released, many ninjas tried this method of training using their Shadow Clones. And as a result, the hospital traffic increased significantly that day. In this regard, Akaban said that he would not take the side effects and needs of the Shadow Clone practice. He has clearly stated in the comics that someone will die. So what can he do? There is really no cure for a fool. However, the points income of these 2 days has decreased significantly. On the one hand, the ninja tasks began to increase. On the other hand, the second generation Kazekage of the Hidden Sand Village has disappeared. And the war is about to start. Many Jonins were sent out for missions to monitor the Land of Wind. That's why the flow of people has decreased a lot. Akaban thought about it for a while and used 6,000 points from more than 30,000 points in exchange for 5 points of mental power. With his current mental power, the impact of 5 points is not great, but it can somewhat relieve the strong fatigue caused by the dissipation of the 4 Shadow Clones at once. Speaking of which, I have updated 10 more chapters today. This update will involve the plot of Asuma's encounter with the undead duo, right? Akaban glanced at the manuscript of the clone, and then fell into deep thought. Asuma seemed to have not been born yet. Well, it's not a big problem. Thinking about it carefully, he even killed the third Hokage, and the mere Asuma was nothing, and there was no need to report. Since war was about to start, the third Hokage should have been very busy these days and has no time to read comics. So the next day, the moment after the comic came out, almost all of the Sarutobi family knew that Asuma's about to die, and only Sarutobi was still in the dark. Until the afternoon, when the office door was knocked. "Come in," Hiruzen said, then Danza opened the door and walked in slowly. He held two things in his hand. One was the information about the events of Yiwu, and the analysis of Kakuzu and Madara, while the other hand was a book of comics. "This is today's update. We have found out that the memory of Yiwu has been tampered, and we can be sure that Uchiha Madara controlled her with illusion on that day, and then let her enter the Kingdom of the Wind all the way, and killed several sand-hidden village ninjas at the border." Danza sat down unceremoniously. Hiruzen also read it while listening, frowning slightly after reading, sinking into his thoughts. There is not much information in Yiwu's memory, but it is especially crucial for them to know that Yiwu's strength is not weak, but to be honest, she is at most elite Chunin or special Jounin. In terms of genjutsu, few in the Konoha can resist Madara's control. With Madara's ability, it is easy to make a ninja like Yiwu avoid the ninja at the border, but Madara did not do so. So why is that? Hiruzen was a little puzzled. After thinking for a long time, a smile appeared on his face and said, "It seems that they are not on good terms." "Yes, and I think Madara is very wary of Black Zetsu. This action is probably a test of Madara." Danza's view is the same as that of Hiruzen. However, he had a meeting with the Anbu, and he thought of more than Hiruzen. He paused, and then said, "I think the Sand Village must be able to guess it too, but they are likely to still start a war." Hiruzen was silent for dozens of seconds and then nodded heavily. "Yes. Even if they know it, war is still inevitable, and the difference is only in scale. However, once the fuse of the war is opened, no one can predict what will follow." Hiruzen sighed and put this information aside. "Konoha has nothing to do with this war. Others want to plant stolen goods, and the Sand Village vaguely wants to make a fortune. They can only cope with the changes, and soldiers will stop the water. But then..." He glanced at the comic next to his eyes suspiciously and looked at Danza strangely. "Bring me comics." The relationship between Hiruzen and Danza is very good, but at the same time also very bad. Danza brought him comics. Isn't it a weasel giving a New Year greeting to the chicken? He thought to himself, is this book special? "Hiruzen, I know you are very busy lately, so I bought a book for you to relax." Danza smiled slightly. Hiruzen felt something wrong in his heart and took a look at the comic. There was no problem at first. Wind style, Rasengan. It turns out that Rasengan can still centralize nature transformation. If it succeeds, this ninjutsu will definitely become S-rank ninjutsu. During the period, Asuma also appeared on the stage, instructing Naruto training wind-style chakra. Everything was fine. However, in the next second, Haiden and Kakuzu appeared. He doesn't know why, but Hiruzen feels very upset. He turned page by page and then saw the plots of the 12 Guardians, Earth and Land etc., and the bad feeling in his heart became stronger and stronger. Sure enough, Asuma was dispatched. "Son, your path is narrow." Hiruzen sighed and basically saw the future of Asuma. In Kakashi's words, "Your future is only death." Hiruzen gave Danza a fierce look. Danza chuckled and stood up and said, "I don't have any troubles in this regard, and I can't understand your feelings, but Hiruzen, you should pay more attention to Shinosuke and don't let tragedy happen." Get out. Hiruzen waved impatiently and couldn't help lighting up a cigarette and taking a sip. After his chakra weapon pot was made, Shinosuke left the village and his destination was basically the same as that of Asuma in the comics. Of course, there is no such thing as a Guardian 12 yet. His heart is very troubled. As the son of Hokage, allowing Shinosuke to be in danger outside, especially on the eve of this kind of war. Not every time can Ikeban save people from thousands of miles away. But if he let him come back, Hiruzen knows that this is basically impossible. Shinosuke is very persistent and has his own ideas, and it is impossible to follow his advice and come back. Shinosuke, I hope you can find the answer in your heart. Hiruzen stood up and turned to look at Konoha. All his love is dedicated to the village. As a father, Hiruzen knows that he is not qualified. Because it takes a little later to get the comic elsewhere in Land of Fire, Shinosuke, who is listed in the Protection of Ninjas from Daimyo Prefecture, saw the latest comic very late. After reading it, he was silent for a long time. After today, Shinosuke is officially 14 years old. His birthday is still not celebrated with his father, but he is used to it, and it has been the same for the past 14 years. But Shinosuke, happy birthday! A woman rushed out from behind with a cake in her hand. Shinosuke turned his head back, his face was full of consternation. Sister Rias, why are you? From your ninja profile, I know that it's your birthday today. Well, it's not pretty. Don't be surprised. Rias has signature red hair. She is a member of the Uzumaki clan, but she is not keen on training and ninjutsu. Compared to fighting, she prefers a peaceful life without waves. In her hands, there was something that he couldn't tell whether it was a cake or something. Thank you, Sister Rias. Shinosuke had some tears, his voice choked unconsciously. This is the first time in his memory that he heard birthday wishes and gifts from someone other than his mother. Hey! Let's go to the yard to eat it, I will pick you some fruits. Rias took him to the yard. As soon as he went out, the loud happy birthday sounded. The children of the Uzumaki clan and teenage ninjas are all here, all with smiles on their faces, and in the middle are the fruits and snacks they collected. Thank you, everyone. Shinosuke was very moved, and at the same time seemed to experience the jade mentioned by Ikeban in the manga. What is jade? Not a daimyo, nor Hokage, but something that I care about, the person I want to protect. Villagers, citizens, and peace. As long as these are what I want to protect, there is no such thing as identity or status. Shinosuke got the answer in his heart, and at the same time, he had the happiest birthday in his life, and Rias seeing it also felt happy. Ha 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 ha, Loketown is in front, we are back to Loketown. Finally, we're back. Long live Loketown tilde. On the river of the country of River, a huge pirate ship slowly drove up. On the pirate flag was a heart. Judging from its appearance, this pirate ship should be very powerful and domineering. But now it is very shabby, and the pirate flags are already broken. Kakuzu appeared on the bow. Move everything out, ready to go back. Yes, boss. Boxes were moved out of the ship warehouse, and Kakuzu looked back at these boxes, with satisfaction in his eyes. Although no devil fruit was found on this trip to the sea. But Kakuzu didn't care, he ransacked a small sea country and grabbed a pile of gold. This is the pleasure of pirates. Boss, what shall we do next? Should we go back selling comics, or set sail again? His subordinates, who tasted the sweetness of success, asked eagerly. Although life on the sea is hard, they can get some profit after disembarking. Although transporting comics can also make money, there is no way it can be compared to a handful of gold and jewelry they have right now. Take a break and we'll talk later. After going out to sea, Kakuzu was very satisfied. Before, he really didn't know that there was still so much money to make at sea. If it wasn't for Akaban, how could he make so much money in one go? When he disembarked, his first thought was to go to the tavern and see if Akaban was there, so that he could share his experience at sea with him. But as soon as he entered the pub, he turned his head and saw an old man sitting on a table near the door. He frowned slightly, then suddenly thought of something in his mind, and walked back calmly. Uchiha Madara. How can such a character still survive in the world? Kakuzu's heart was shocked, and the thought of competing with Uchiha Madara didn't even appear on his mind at all. Because he knew that he was not Madara's opponent at all. The opponent is a terrible guy who is on par with the first Hokage. He exited the tavern and walked calmly to the other side of the ship, pretending that he didn't see Madara. However, when he walked to the dock, the old man appeared not far from him again. There is no murderous intent, chakra fluctuation, and he just glances over. But Kakuzu completely confirmed that this old man is the same famous Madara, Senju Hashirama rival back then. And he can't be wrong with his judgment. Back then, he had seen Uchiha Madara from afar, those terrifying eyes that instill fear in everyone. Ha ha ha, I didn't expect anyone in the world to recognize me as Uchiha Madara, but it is strange. Madara looked at him. He had seen too many people, but a character like Kakuzu, he really couldn't remember him for a while. Kakuzu's heart was beating fast as he saw Madara getting closer. And although he looks like a normal old man, his sense of danger keeps beeping that he knows he won't survive if Madara attacks him. But he quickly adjusted his state quickly. As he found that Madara in front of him was just a shadow clone. If he is just a clone. Interesting, you actually have 5 hearts, this kind of technique. I remember it should be a kind of secret jutsu from Hidden Waterfall Village. Madara's eyes have unconsciously revealed the eternal Mangekyo pattern. The strength of Kakuzu is quite strong. Even Madara didn't have the confidence to easily subdue Kakuzu in this situation, but he didn't embarrass Kakuzu this time, he just waited idly for opportunities and found someone who recognized him. As expected of Senior Madara, yes, I am a rebel ninja of the Hidden Waterfall Village. Kakuzu took a deep breath and didn't choose to do it. Because the opponent is not hostile for unknown reasons. I'm not interested in your name. Have you found the devil fruit when you came back? Madden asked indifferently. No. Kakuzu shook his heads, feeling ridiculous at the same time. Although he said this trip was going to the sea to find devil fruit, he himself didn't really believe it. On the contrary. He didn't think that a strong character such as Uchiha Madara would believe that there will be such nonsense that there will be devil fruits in the world. Thinking of this, he couldn't help laughing. Even the strong are unavoidably stupid in the face of the unknown. Madara glanced at him and said coldly, "Don't use your stupid ideas to infer me, especially if you give me words like stupid if you don't want to die." Kakuzu was stunned for a moment, and his heart felt a little hairy. How does Madara know what he thinks? But soon, Kakuzu calmed down and asked, "Senior Madara, you shouldn't be looking for me just to ask about these boring things. This question is not boring at all, Do you think there is really no devil fruit in the world? Madara said lightly. After hearing this, Kakuzu was stunned for a moment, and then thought of one thing. According to the news from the sea, the Jashinists had a devil fruit that was snatched away, and that person's strength was very strong, and a large earth release, earth flow river washed away everyone. So to say. Could it be? Kakuzu's face turned pale, then he felt for a moment and understood one thing better. The moment he saw Mangekyo Sharingan just now, he was hit by Genjutsu. That meant that he was in the world of illusion. And killing him with Genjutsu is definitely easy with Madara's strength, but the other party did not do so. So he couldn't help but ask, "Do you want to cooperate with me?" "No, what I lack is a subordinate. You are willing to live as my subordinate, otherwise you will die." Madara's use of the shadow clone and Genjutsu are all for concealment. Although that guy is not back yet from the land of wind, that guy has strong perception, reconnaissance and hiding abilities, and he might reveal his secrets if he is not careful. At the same time, because of his loss, Madara has to find a suitable subordinate to help him do something that is not suitable for him to do. And Kakuzu is considered to be an object with good ability. From the moment he knew that Madara didn't plan to leave the land of river, Akaban was fully prepared for the situation here. A polished commander can't do big things. But, judging from the news reported by the clone of Orochimaru, although something happened in the land of river, but after Kakuzu came back, Kakuzu didn't stop any transaction happening in the Logue town, but he still kept it. That means that there is no problem on the surface. It is difficult for Akaban to guess the truth of the matter, but he simply put Kakuzu into the untrustworthy areas. There is no such thing as a strong relationship between himself and Kakuzu. And there is no commitment and loyalty between them. Moreover, people like Kakuzu can only talk about benefits. In the past 2 days, his updates have slowed down, but the appearance of hidden strength has caused some lunatics to pay attention to Akaban. At the country of water, the base of the Jashinists, a group of believers put some blood and corpses into the vessel, muttering words, and among them are fruit-like things. It's the fake devil fruit. After a long time, the sacrifice was over. Everyone stopped, and an old man said, "Recently, Konoha's comics mentioned our Lord Jashin. They probably have some information. My lord, why don't we go to the land of fire next time to hold a ceremony? I believe that Lord Jashin must like the blood of Konoha atheists," someone suggested. These fake devil fruits become an element to spread their Jashinists. Since the last sale, many ninjas have been added to the Jashinists cult. Some of them are qualified experimental subjects to gain the power of Jashinists' regeneration ability, but the cost is that the accumulated Jashin power is very expensive and needs to be supplemented. The old man smiled slightly and said, "Recently, the second Kazekage of Sand Village has disappeared, but the Sand Village is afraid to do it. So let's do it first and give them more courage." "Yes. For Lord Jashin," howled all the cultists, and the look on their eyes can only be described as crazy. Although the people here are high-level people, they are more inclined to management and research, but they are equally obsessed with killing. Fear. It's not in their vocabulary. That night, a group of heresy cultists arrived in the land of fire from the water country by boat. When Konoha got the news, it was already the next day. Akaban's new comic has been updated. In this update, Naruto has only 5 chapters, but in these 5 chapters, Asuma is officially dead. And he died from a lack of intelligence. Like in the previous life, the readers were very surprised by Asuma's death, but unlike in the previous life, most of the readers of Naruto were ninjas, and everyone understood this situation well. Intelligence. The battle between ninjas is not just a competition of strength, but also a competition of intelligence. The collection and understanding of intelligence on both sides is really important. This is the case with Asuma and Hayden. If Asuma knew that Hayden has this kind of ability, would Asuma let Hayden get his blood so easily? Impossible. Taking this opportunity, the Hyuga clan once again conveyed to the village the demands of the city's formal reconnaissance department. There is no doubt that the Hyuga clan wants to become the minister of the reconnaissance department. Those who have white eyes do have a great advantage here. If a reconnaissance department is really established, unless Uzumaki Maito comes out of the mountain, the position of the minister must be the head of the Hyuga clan. However, from the last war to the present, Hiruzen has not expressed his views. Until morning. This time not only the Hyuga clan, including Inuzuka, Aburame and other clans who are good at reconnaissance, were all called to the office. In addition to them, there is Akaban. Sorry, I'm late. Akaban arrived last. If it hadn't been for Anbu's reminder, he might still be asleep. No, you're just right. Hiruzen pointed to the seat and let Akaban sit down by himself. Afterwards, he sent down the copied notes. Akaban got one of them, and it said that the whole village of XX was slaughtered, and there were traces of some kind of ritual on the scene. Then looking at the people nearby. Looking at the copy near them, the location name of each note is different. Jashinists. Everyone turned their heads at the same time and looked at the third Hokage. Hiruzen was silent for a moment and then said, "The Jashinists are here, and they are frantic. Akaban, you have been in contact with the Jashinists a lot. Tell me about what you know." "I actually don't know much about those Jashinists, but one thing can be confirmed. They have the technology to transform the human body with the Jashin chakra. And the artificial devil fruit is one of the examples of their use of Jashin chakra. P.S. Jashin in English is devil god." Akaban explained. "So, what is our task?" Meizazu Hyuga looked solemnly. "Within a week, wipe out all the Jashinists in the land of fire." The tone of the third Hokage was cold. Konoha is in an eventful autumn, and a turmoil like this must be dealt with quickly, otherwise, it will easily become the fuse for the rest of Shinobu village. I gave an order to formally establish a reconnaissance department with Meizazu Hyuga as the minister. It is temporarily responsible for investigating the whereabouts of the members of the cult. Once the cult is found, they will be killed as much as possible while preserving your own safety. And Kurama Akaban is in charge of support. Yes. Akaban got up and took the task. The supporter means that he has extremely fast speed and the ability to change the battlefield. He has this ability completely. These heretics are crazy. They had been active in the country of water before, and everyone ignored them, but since they entered the country of fire, they should be prepared to be killed. Chapter 287 Flashback, Naruto and the Old Soldier. What exactly is Jashin? Don't talk about the people of Konoha, the Jashinists may not understand it themselves. They make killings, enjoy killings, and gain strength in the killing rituals. From the perspective of Akaban's understanding, they are a group of lunatics who have mastered a certain research ability. Of course, they are incomparable with the villain Orochimaru in the comics. In the comics, Orochimaru is also a lunatic defined by Akaban, but he is a lunatic with reason and pursuit. And for Jashinists. In short, Jashinists must die. Akaban is not lazy, leaving 2 shadow clones to be responsible for the update, one to update Naruto and the other to update One Piece. Although he really wanted to get the Navy 6 style as soon as possible, the first task at present was to solve the Jashinists' problem. As a coordinator, he needs to maintain a considerable amount of chakras. For this reason, only 2 shadow clones are left, which means that each volume in his update today has only 5 chapters. But it does not matter. If the Jashinists' cult can be resolved quickly, it is the same to come back and continue to update. Although the Jashinists' cult has a variety of abilities, none of them threaten Akaban. Even if they create a second Haiden, it's still useless for him. There is no armament haki in this world, and using the elementalization of his devil fruit alone can solve all problems. It is worth mentioning that after Orochimaru learned the news, he quickly volunteered to participate in this hunt for Jashinists. Since they are living experiments for him. Human experiments are very inhumane, but are the Jashinists still humans? For this, the third Hokage allowed it by default. The group set off from Konoha and quickly went to the border area of the Country of Fire near the Country of Water. In addition to the reconnaissance team, many promising guards also participated in this operation. In total, there are about 300 to 400 Chunins and more than 50 Jonin. But before leaving, Akaban saw an unexpected person. It's Kosuke. He still carried the big black pot, with a sword hidden in the black spot, and he didn't look like a Chunin or Jonin in his costume. Like Akaban, he is also a supporter. When he was distracted, Kosuke and Akaban walked together, holding a knife in his hand, distracted and carved wood while running. With his sword skill reaching a certain level, it can indeed be done. But only him can do it like this. For the samurai family like Hatake Kazumi, they would not do this. When they arrived at the border, Kosuke had already finished engraving a wood carving. This is a statue of the second Hokage. Let's settle down here. This is the central area which can support any location around. Yes, Senior Kosuke. Akaban has no doubts. He is definitely much stronger than Kosuke in terms of strength, but he is better when it comes to battlefield experience. And 10 Jonin are not Kosuke's opponents when it comes to experience. Kosuke sat down, put down the cauldron behind him, and then created a shadow clone as they went out looking for food. While he sat himself, continuing to sculpt the unfinished work. Akaban at his side also sat down and glanced at it. The wood carvings of Senju Tobirama are very exquisite, with almost perfect details and facial features. It can be seen from the wood carving that he holds a very high position in Kosuke's heart. Kosuke stopped halfway through, seeing no one around him. He asked, Akaban, you said in your comics that Genin and Jonin are both ninjas, and both can contribute to Konoha. But why must we have to have a role like Genin and Jonin? What is the point of having different positions if all can contribute to Konoha? Senior, in my humble opinion, Jonin and Genin are mainly divided into commanding abilities. The rich experience of Jonin can correctly command everyone to fight and avoid unnecessary casualties, while Genin just acts according to other people's plans. Akaban said nothing more here. Kosuke is a well-known eternal Genin. Although no one would despise him except for the new generation in this era, but everyone still looks down on him somewhat. Obviously, it's because although he has the strength of a Jonin, he still wants to be a Genin. From the point of view of Shinobi, Kosuke wasted his abilities and failed the coaching of the second Hokage. Command ability, like Kakashi. Kosuke asked thoughtfully. 3 years later, Kakashi was actually not much stronger than Naruto in strength, but his combat experience was a crushing level compared to Naruto. Experience, command. It is these 2 points that Genin is definitely lacking. Afterwards, Kosuke told him about what he had done back then. The content is similar to that in the comics, but the leader made a mistake in the past, which caused the tragic death of 2 of his teammates, and then vowed to the second Hokage. Ikeban listened carefully. After Kosuke finished speaking, he thought for a second or two before he said, "Senior Kosuke, if I must give advice, you understand the consequences of inadvertent command." Yes. Kosuke knew Ikeban's meaning. Now that you understand, you must be brave enough to take it. To endure for a lifetime is just evading responsibility. This is also what the third Hokage wants to say. He sighed and didn't know how to answer, so he continued to carve the wooden sculpture in his hand. The next second. "Senior, there are 2 chakra fluctuations, one is 8 miles away to the south, and the other. I'm going to the nearer northeast, you go to the south to help, and after the battle, return here to meet." Kosuke made a decisive decision. Each team carries a special kunai, and Ikeban must be much faster than him. Ikeban set off quickly. The next second, with the use of the flying thunder god jutsu, Ikeban appeared on the battlefield. The enemies are 5 very tall guys, and they seem to have the ability to grow bigger than the cultists have performed before. "Ikeban, be careful," the Jonin leading the team reminded him. However, in the next second, all 5 huge cultists were sluggish in place. They suffered various injuries, then collapsed to the ground and fell into a coma. Genjutsu. Although it doesn't work on Madara, it is completely a spiked level for these cultists. Even if they have the evil god chakra in their bodies, they still can't resist the illusion of the Kurama clan. "You take care of it." After Ikeban said that, he activated his perception and soon noticed another battle. Flying Thunder God Jutsu, illusion. In an instant, the enemy fell to the ground. Within a few breaths, Ikeban solved 3 or 4 enemies on the battlefield. Seeing is believing, hearing is not. Although everyone knows that Ikeban is very powerful now, there is no concept of how powerful he is. Until today, this group of Chunin and Jonin finally know how strong Ikeban is. Simply put, he can kill them in only one thought. And it's not an exaggeration at all. What worries the Jonin most is that, if Ikeban is this strong, then how powerful Madara is if Ikeban can't defeat him. No one has the answer, because, except Ikeban and Uzumaki Maito, the others who have seen Madara are dead. A few seconds later, Ikeban returned to the meeting point. Before Kosuke came back, he sat down to recover his chakra. With the physique of the Uzumaki clan, it does not take too long to recover the lost chakra. After recovering his physical condition, Ikeban pondered for a while and sat down to paint. This chapter is called Naruto and the Old Soldier. It is a flashback story of Naruto. But after hearing the story of Kosuke, Ikeban decided to draw it in advance. And there are many reasons for him doing it. On the one hand, Kosuke's experience is very touching. On the other hand, he hopes this plot can give Kosuke a choice. And he began to draw. Since he is on the battlefield, Ikeban couldn't concentrate on his drawing, so his speed was relatively slow, but after drawing page by page, due to the speed of the hand, he quickly completed the story. Kosuke is an anime character. His plots are very fragmented, and most of them are spent in memories, but his ability to survive is really strong from the second Hokage period to the fourth Ninja War. Akaban thought for a long time and continued to draw the next sentence. To change an anime plot into a comic requires some adaptations, especially this one belonging to Kosuke's plot story. The plot, memories, and battles. When Kosuke returned, Akaban had already finished all the plot. And there are 5 chapters in total. The content is not too much, but it incorporates some things Akaban wants to draw, like the Shinobi's duty, and the will of fire. So fast. Sigh, I didn't expect that when I go to support, you have already completed the other side's support, and you have come back to draw a bunch of comics. Kosuke smiled. He was stained with blood, and he obviously experienced a terrible battle. It just happens that my ability can restrain them. Those cultists have strong resilience, but they have no resistance to the illusions of the Kurama clan, not to mention Akaban's mental power has reached 215 points. It is too simple to kill them. Senior, this book, I hope you will be the first to read it. Akaban compiled the comic according to the number of pages into a book from beginning to end and then handed it to Kosuke. Kosuke glanced at the cover. Naruto and the Old Soldier. He knows that this book is not in the regular plot line, but it is also related to the plot of the comics. It belongs to a kind of thing called flashback. Kosuke took it and started reading it. The beginning of the story is on the eve of Konoha's collapse plan. The third Hokage asked Kosuke to do something, and then the plot came after the collapse plan. The squad travels and is responsible for monitoring the movements of Stone Ninja. And in this story, he is here. From the beginning to the end, Kosuke became more and more silent. After reading it, he returned the stack of manuscripts to Akaban, and then sighed and said, "It's a wonderful story. Adapted to your situation, I hope you don't mind." Akaban put it away. Kosuke shook his head without saying anything. Afterwards, the shadow clone came back and brought back a lot of food such as mushrooms and bamboo shoots. He put down the big pot, lit a bonfire and started cooking. Halfway through the cooking process, Kosuke continued, "Child, you want to say that Chunin has power, but he also has to charge first and sacrifice first, and Genin. Genin is the future of Konoha, they belong to the protected class, at least, the second Hokage Sama means that." Akaban said. Why did Senju Tobirama founded the Shinobi Academy? The original meaning was to keep children away from war. After all, in those days, most of his brothers died in the war at an early age, and Senju Hashirama and Senju Tobirama were not willing to repeat the same mistakes. In the manga, Kosuke has a strong strength, but there is a genin like Naruto, so under the command of Jonin, the rest were killed and wounded, but he and Naruto are still safe. Of course. The other reason is it's due to Naruto and Kosuke's strength, but Genin belongs to the lower position in the sacrifice priority. Kosuke understood this, so he began to wonder whether his approach was correct. Is becoming a genin for a lifetime is the right way for him to atone for his wrong decision. Come and support me. A snake came out from the cuffs of Akaban. This is the snake clone arranged in advance by Orochimaru, which is mainly used for contact and help. Don't look at Orochimaru, who has been in the laboratory for this period of time, but under all kinds of strange ninjutsu, his strength has not been reduced at all, but it has been improved. So he can solve ordinary enemies without asking for help. But when it's to the point where the distress signal is released, Akaban didn't have time to think about it, and said to Kosuke, "Senior, I'll go to support first. Please pay attention to safety. Do not worry. Kosuke nodded slightly. He has also dealt with the Jashinists. Although their strength is strong, their attack method is very simple. So ninja above Chunin just need to be careful, and there will be no danger in their life. What's more, he is not an ordinary ninja. The next second, with the use of Flying Thunder God Jutsu, Akaban came to Orochimaru's side. Ha 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 ha, feel the power of Lord Jashin, right? I have to thank Kurama Akaban from your village. If it weren't for him, how could Lord Jashin give us invincible power in advance? Not far away, a Jashinist's cultist was covered with evil lines, and under his feet were painted with patterns similar to Haiden. Behind him, there are other Jashinists. One has immortality, the other is fast and has healing ability. We can't kill them. Orochimaru quickly exchanged information. Akaban nodded slightly, feeling clear. This lineup, indeed, Orochimaru and other ninjas who are good at reconnaissance, ninjutsu, and physical attacks cannot do anything to them. To kill these people, they must start from other aspects, like using illusion, or sealing jutsu. More than that, the opponent has already taken the blood of a certain Konoha ninja, and will soon be able to activate the technique. At this moment, Thunder Fruit instantaneous speed. Without anyone noticing, Akaban disappeared on Orochimaru's side as he instantaneously appeared beside the cultist who had his body full of black lines. Bang! There was a loud roar, and the burst of impact destroyed all the drawn patterns. So you want to crack it like this? Orochimaru can see that if he knows this method, he doesn't need to call Akaban over, and he can complete the battle by himself. This is the role of intelligence. Damn it, you bastard, go to hell! The undead cultists shouted. His costume was familiar. Akaban vaguely remembered that he appeared in the previous counterfeit devil fruit meeting, and the opponent's weapon was also a sickle imitating Haiden. In terms of appearance, he is simply a replica of Haiden. But when the cultist stared at himself, the illusion was already activated. Akaban, don't kill him! Orochimaru shouted immediately. Immortal, is there any other person in the world who is more suitable for experimentation than this guy? If it were so destroyed, it would be a pity. Don't worry, he can't die. A ninja from Naruto clan cooperated with Akaban, who was using his Kekii Genkai to subdue the cultist who had an immortal body without any difficulty under the condition of mental power crushing. To a certain extent, the result of turning fictitious into reality was that the cultist was dismembered and could not be connected together, but he did not die immediately as every limb of his was struggling. At the same time, he was still yelling and cursing frantically, which is quite disturbing, to say the least. As for the other one, unlike the one who has an immortal body, his destiny was very miserable. He was aging dozens of times in an instant after the evil god chakra was exhausted. His ability would draw a lot of vitality. Therefore, after leaving the Phantom, he immediately exhausted his vitality and died. As soon as this ability appeared in Akaban's comics, they have already studied it by reference. This cultist is indeed terrifying. Walking with Orochimaru is a ninja from the Aburam clan, Aburam Chaya. It stands to reason that Aburam clan's parasitic insects can destroy the limbs on the other side and absorb chakra, thus achieving the effect of defeating the opponent, but Jashin chakra is too evil, and his parasitic insects immediately fell into madness after eating the chakra. This made him afraid to use his full strength against the cultists. You only looked at the front, right? Later I will draw on how to deal with this kind of immortality. It is a pity that your researcher doesn't know this, otherwise he shouldn't be so careless. Akaban kicked the head, and then looked at Orochimaru and the others. These 4 ninjas don't seem to know how to use sealing jutsu. Forget it, good people do it to the end. Separate the limbs with seal scrolls and seal them, and then hand all these seal scrolls to Orochimaru. Anyway, among Konoha, the one who needs them is Orochimaru. For this kind of ability, should I just split him up? Yes. Akaban nodded. It can be seen from the original story that after Hiden's head is separated from his body does not have the ability to move, so he needs Kakuzu to help him stitch his limbs. The cultist's abilities are modeled after the abilities of Hiden in the comics, so it can be targeted in the same way. The more Orochimaru listened, the more his eyes shone with excitement. Jashinists, really interesting. He couldn't help but laugh, making the rest of his teammates feel a chill. If it's okay, I will support others. After coming out, there happened to be an enemy within his sensing range. Akaban didn't mind going to support them. Anyway, it won't take a while. Moving within a short distance does not consume much of chakra. With his current chakras, teleporting to the markers of surrounding people is simply a breeze. Before long, all the enemies found in this area were emptied, and the efficiency was frightening. At this rate, they can clear the Jashinists in this area in just one day. This is the credit of the reconnaissance team, but Akaban's credit is also not small. Until the evening, everyone is still working in the ninja world. It is easier to move at night. Akaban is no exception. Of course, he worked so hard just hoping to go back soon. At the hidden sand village side. When they got the news that the land of fire was invaded by Jashinists, it was already that night. So a high-level personnel urgent meeting was issued. Of course. In order to reduce wrangling time, the high-level staff here did not involve the daimyo, only the 3rd Kazekage of the village and the 2 advisors Kyo and Ibizo. Elder Kyo, Ibizo, this is the message that has just been transmitted directly by the Jashinists through our Ninja Eagle. Zack spread out this information. The ability to find their Ninja Eagle is enough to show that the Jashinists' cult is excellent. On the other hand, the above information is quite important. The Jashinists attacked the eastern part of the fire country. When Kyo glanced at it, her eyes lit up and said, "This is our golden opportunity." These Jashinists' words are not credible. Ibizo muttered a moment later, repeating some information about the Jashinists he collected. He is the Anbu commander of Hidden Sand. Zack listened carefully, and then he meditated for a moment and said, "So, the purpose of the Jashinists is to fight Konoha. Is it possible that the person who murdered the teacher is the Jashinists? It's unlikely. I think the other side may be in Land of Rivers and Hidden Rain Village. Jashinists have no manpower in this area, so Jashinists just want to use us to kill and please their god Jashin." Ibizo analyzed. Located in the west, Sand Village is barren and relatively closed in intelligence. Although there are many Sand Anbus lurking outside, to be honest, a considerable part of his understanding of Jashinists comes from Akaban's comics. To treat manga as a fact, it is them. But this was also after a series of analyses by Ibizo that Akaban did not make up his story, otherwise he wouldn't date to say it in front of his sister and Zack. Zack pondered for a moment and said, "The opportunity is not to be lost. Let's pretend to attack the country of the river and see Konoha's reaction. If there is a third party, it is not impossible to join forces to target the people behind the scenes." After being a Kazekage for a while, he understood some of Shaman's policies to a certain extent. There are no absolute enemies in the world. Hidden Sand Village has hatred with Konoha, but when they have a common enemy, they can also dissolve their hatred unanimously. Okay, then I will immediately order our ninja to let Chunin lead the team and go to the country of river. Ibizo did not hesitate. The reason why the country of the river is poor is because of this. When there is a gap between Hidden Sand Village and Konoha Village, they will use the buffer in the middle to move the knife and see how the other side reacts. Black Zetsu had actually fled the country of river long ago, but Shaman's corpse was indeed in the country of river. With Shaman being transformed into a half puppet, he basically had no ability to resist against Black Zetsu possession ability. The purpose of this guy is simply to hope that Madara will be discovered. At first, Black Zetsu pinned his hopes on Madara, but after discovering that Madara could not be controlled by him, he changed his mind. Instead of placing hope in Madara, it is better to let Madara die earlier and get his Rinnegan. Anyway, Indra and Asura will continue to reincarnate. Black Zetsu's plan was good, but unfortunately, he didn't know that Madara had found another partner, Kakuzu. Compared with Madara, Kakuzu is very weak. But in fact, he is already at a Kage level strength now. He has 5 hearts and few people can kill him, so he can be called a very strong partner. However, as far as the angle is concerned, being a subordinate is not what he wants. If he becomes Madara's subordinate, his foundation and income must be handed over to Madara. Isn't all of this in vain? That's why Kakuzu now is more anxious than Akaban. Boss, the new comics have arrived. Will they be sent out as before? Well, you can do it this time, but temporarily suspend Land of Wind for the time being. Land of Wind has not been safe recently. Kakuzu said very impatiently. Although he likes money, is money more important than his life? Also, why isn't that guy Akaban coming yet? If he doesn't ask about what's going on here, he will take the money and run away. Kakuzu was caught by Madara, but he seems reluctant to cooperate with Madara. I hope we can find a way, Orochimaru whispered. His subordinate in the Land of River possesses the ability to use a summoned snake, so they can communicate remotely. He was hunting the Jasshinists before, and he had no time to solve these things. It is only now that everyone has gathered together that he has the opportunity to discuss it with Akaban. Reluctant to cooperate with Madara, Akaban was surprised for a moment, then fell into thought. It seems that Madara's conditions are not very good, and it doesn't suit Kakuzu's own interests, but would it be Madara's trap? It's worth considering. He did not answer immediately but made a no gesture. Next, Meiza Suhyuga, the leader of the operation, said, most of the cleaned up today are weaker, but the experimental subjects encountered at night have obviously become stronger, and I guess that the Sand Hidden Village in the west may also be moving. Once the Sand Village moves, the Jasshinists' cult may temporarily retreat. At that time, most ninja can retreat temporarily and go to the country of the river to support. Then the remaining group of ninja will monitor the situation at the border. Orochimaru said as his voice became lower. It stands to reason that he is only a Chunin and has no right to speak here, but on the one hand, he is the third Hokage disciple, and on the other hand, he is the power holder of the research institute. So his combined status is not too low. So after hearing this, Meiza Suhyuga thought for a while, and then said, if you were to take care of this, what would you do? In one day's battle, we have basically understood the methods of the Jasshinists. Fighting will not be as dangerous as today. As long as half of the ninja are left here, I have the confidence to keep the Jasshinists away from the fire. Orochimaru said with confidence with his piercing eyes. Normally, he would not take the initiative to take the job, but the Jashinists' cult is all the best experimental subjects for him, with their strong recovery ability and weird physique. The most important thing is this group of people do a lot of evil, even if they are locked up. It is not too much to die 100 times, and they don't necessarily care about certain aspects of the problem. Therefore, he must hold command. Everyone fell silent, including Akaban. Orochimaru is only over 13 years old now, and maybe 14 years old in some time. Such a child can directly control a war. It's too messy. Kosuke thought for a moment and said, Hyuga-sama, I have some combat experience. Why don't I stay here to assist Orochimaru and provide some empirical help? If Senior Kosuke is willing, that would be great. Hyuga Meizazu was ecstatic. Although something happened in the past, Kosuke's strength and experience are trustworthy, and there is absolutely no problem with his strength. As for the ability on the battlefield, don't even look at this person as a genin, whose actual ability is even higher than him. That is to say, he only called himself with honorifics because he was polite. If they really want to talk about seniority and strength, Kosuke is at the level of an uncle. After everyone understands the methods of Jashinists, it is relatively easy to deal with them, and there is no need to ask Akaban to help. After seeing Akaban's strength, everyone has a good understanding of Akaban's strength, and him dealing with these groups of lunatics is simply asking for a beating. But to Jashinists, the news here is not good. In just one day, 80% of the believers who entered the country of fire died, and only 20% remained lurking and waiting for the opportunity. However, in front of the Bakugan, it is not so easy to hide themselves. The next day, when the people of Jashinists received the news, most of the followers were caught and killed. This was the power of the scout made of the best reconnaissance team in Konoha. Of course. At this moment, Akaban has returned to Konoha. The front line doesn't need him, isn't he a fool to stay? Although Kosuke wild food is delicious, if you can lie down at home and eat well, why bother to come out and eat these? The first thing he did when he returned to Konoha was to send the 5 chapters of the special chapter of Kosuke. Yamano Izumi and the others adapted to the update of 20 or 30 chapters a day, so when it suddenly reduced to a total of 10 chapters, it made them dissatisfied for unknown reasons. So these 5 chapters just filled the vacancy. So to the next day. All the updates are delivered, and Kosuke's name is on fire. Of course. This fire refers to the younger generation. The new generation has never heard of Kosuke's name, let alone Konoha, who has such a hidden master. I also took wood carvings from him, but I didn't expect him to be such a master. Uchiha Ryo was shocked. When he saw Kosuke, he only thought that the other party was a good swordsman, but he didn't expect the other party to be so powerful. That kind of wood carving can't be carved by anyone. Only by immersing in the sword technique for more than 10 years can you make such attainment. Uchiha Ensho glanced at his son. In terms of character and strength, he is always a little bit worse. He thought for a long time and asked, "My child, if Senior Kosuke is promoted to a Jonin, would you like to go under his hands?" For ordinary people, this comic is just a simple comic, but they know very well that Kosuke's strength has already reached the Jonin level. The extra chapter of this book is probably a signal for the promotion of Kosuke being a Chunin to a Jonin. What? After hearing this, Uchiha Ryo was dumbfounded and then hesitated a bit. Kosuke is indeed strong. But from the comics, this man has many flaws. If he becomes his subordinate, in case he is not careful. Konoha style Kenjutsu is the sword art created by the second Hokage Sama. And you are the most suitable Kenjutsu user for Uchiha. If you really don't want it, then forget it. Uchiha Ensho sighed softly. Why did Uchiha befriend Kosuke? They just hope that if Kosuke becomes a Jonin in the future, Uchiha can let their younger generations come under his hands and learn his strongest swordsmanship Yanagi. Uchiha has a family of swordsmanship and illusion skills, but they do not have their own illusion swordsmanship. And although Uchiha Kigami has also mastered this trick, he died, and this trick could not be passed down. No, I do. Uchiha Ryo gritted his teeth and agreed. Although it is dangerous, if he can learn this trick Yanagi, everything is worth it. At the same time, many families also began to find relationships to plan for their children, among which the Gecko and Shimura clans were the most. However, according to the new four-man team rules, only one of the three genins can be from a clan, one is to be selected from the commoner, and the third is to be selected from the ninja who masters medical ninjutsu. That is to say, among so many clans who are enthusiastic about being the first generation disciples of Kosuke, only one can join the Kosuke's team. In fact, not only them, but even Kurama Vuha, the patriarch of the Kurama clan, had a slight move, but Akaban persuaded him to withdraw. A group of 6 seedlings wanting to become Kosuke's disciples. But for the third Hokage, although this extravaganza is important, it is the regular plot that makes him more concerned. Akatsuki. In this volume, Asuma officially retires, but at the same time, Akatsuki's purpose is also expressed through Pain's mouth to control the war and control the world. In addition, he can also see from this book where the suitable soil for Akatsuki to take root. A small country. Only those small countries need Akatsuki, and they need this power to break the existing rules. When everything is reshuffled, the small parliament regains the right to speak, because everyone is equally weak except Akatsuki. Based on the plot, Hiruzen can conclude that Akatsuki's leader must be from a small village. Hiruzen glanced at the map on his table. Hidden Rain Village, Hidden Waterfall Village. These two villages are almost the only places that have the ability to train powerful ninjas. Of course. In fact, there is no need to guess at all. From the background of the Akatsuki leader in the comic, he is definitely from the Hidden Rain Village. Hidden Rain Village is isolated from the world, but the rest of the village knows a lot about what it is. In Hidden Rain Village at this time, Hanzo was sitting in his office with a bunch of comics on hand. This is the Naruto comic he has just captured from his subordinates. 1 volume, 2 volumes. Seeing the end from the beginning, Hanzo's heart was raging. In his eyes, this is undoubtedly a comic advocating Konoha as a big country, and like their rain village, the only ones who appeared on the scene were only those extra who were shot by Gaara. Unacceptable. Of course, what angered him the most was why is Akatsuki leader from Rain Village. The Akatsuki leader's words are not unreasonable. As the leader of Rain Village, Hanzo agrees with some aspects, but the current strength of Rain Village is simply not enough to compete with other great powers, so he can only choose to stay dormant. The Land of Whirlpools War originally had nothing to do with Hidden Rain Village, but Hidden Rain Village was dumbfounded and lost the land on the Land of Birds side. To be honest, Hanzo sending troops to Land of Whirlpools is really just to make money. But now the problem is that Konoha poured a bucket of dirty water on them. Akatsuki's first stage is to make money, the second stage is to control the weapon, and the third stage is to control the world. Participate in the Land of Whirlpools War, which is first stage, and collect sealing jutsu at the same time. If the leader of Hidden Rain Village is not Hansa, everyone will not be so skeptical, but Hansa. He is called a demigod. Today, the first and second Hokage have passed away, and Hansa's strength can be called the pinnacle of the current ninja world. In addition to having no Rinnegan, he is fully capable of accomplishing what the Akatsuki is doing in the comics. Once the comic came out, who wouldn't doubt it? Not to mention other people, Hansa himself almost believed it, which is why he looked gloomy. Chief, should we send a letter to Sand Village to explain it? Explanation. Sand Village does not listen to explanations now, and the more we explain, the more trouble we have. We can only wait for Sand Village's response to see what they plan. Hansa has a headache. Now the hidden Sand Village is like a mad dog, who is caught and bitten, and this mad dog knows in their heart that the disappearance of Shaman has nothing to do with most of their opponents. This is an excuse to start a war and seek benefits. Originally, no one would have thought of the Hidden Rain Village, but as soon as the comics came out, it didn't matter and became relevant. Although comics are comics, the reality is reality, but Hansa, who has the title of demigod, can completely take the half-crippled shaman out, and there are quite hands-on reasons for this. The most disgusting thing is that Hansa can't explain it yet. After all, the Sand Village didn't say that it was related to Rain Village. Son of he took the initiative to jump out, isn't it like having a guilty conscience? Damn those hateful Konoha. To be honest, Akaban himself didn't expect any impact on this volume. He just copied it completely from his memory. However, in the afternoon, the third Hokage approached him and discussed whether the Hidden Rain Village might be associated with Madara and Black Zetsu. And that's the moment Akaban realized that the Hidden Rain Village had some trouble. The disappearance of Shaman has nothing to do with Rain Village, but it is hard to say how the Sand Village thinks. Compared with Rain Village, Konoha is better to deal with Rain Village, so it doesn't matter whether the Hidden Rain Village did it or not. Doesn't the Sand Village know that that is not the work of Konoha? They just want a reason. The reason for the third Hokage to look for Akaban is very simple: step up efforts, and don't stop the Rain Village. According to the original plot, the subsequent Akatsuki plot will also seal the Three Tails and Hidden Cloud Village Jinchu Uriki Ujitonii, followed by the Two Tails, and next was the fight of Ino Shikacho and Kakashi to play a combination of Kakuzu and Haiden. However, since the third Hokage has requirements, he must create conditions if there is no condition. Akaban went back to the comic shop to think for a long time, and finally decided to draw another extra volume. The content of this volume is the section where Kakashi sneaked into the Rain Village to find Hansa of the Salamander. This plot took place in the new Chunin exams after Tsunade was on top. Kakashi went to Hidden Rain Village to investigate the situation inside Hidden Rain Village. The third Hokage has asked for greater efforts and he can only proceed from this aspect. However, there were many readers in the village discussing Akatsuki's purpose, and even these readers were gathered in Akaban's newly renovated refreshment cafe, where they could talk about these things while eating and drinking. Here, even an ordinary person can talk about Hidden Rain Village, Hidden Sand Village and other ninja villages, but it's a pity that Hidden Rain Village can't hear these remarks, otherwise it must be quite exciting. In addition, Akaban learned from Third Kage that Hidden Sand Village has officially increased its manpower to Land of Rivers. But obviously, they didn't know the news that Uchiha Madara was in Hidden Sand Village, so Konoha didn't say either. Loketown is located on the west side of Land of Rivers by the river, close to Land of Wind. When the hidden sand village invades land of rivers, they must go in the direction of Log Town. Seeing is believing, hearing is fictitious. All of them thought that Madara is not in this world anymore, so let the sand village witness it by themselves. While thinking about the plot, Akaban thought about the plot of One Piece. The story of One Piece is still on Long Island. Akaban had considered deleting it. After all, from the perspective of composition, this story is really boring, comparable to the original anime. However, it is really the plot of a comic. More than that, in this chapter, a very important role, one of the three admirals, the frozen devil fruit owner, Aokiji, appeared. Akaban liked this character quite a bit when watching anime in his previous life. Aokiji is very powerful and can be regarded as a powerful candidate to compete for the next generation of fleet admiral, and the definition of justice is not as extreme as Akainu. If he could be a fleet admiral with Isho on his side, perhaps the navy would be very different. It's a pity that it's Akainu who becomes the next fleet admiral. It just so happened that today he finished the plot of Long Island without attending work, and it just happened to let the plot enter the City of Water 7 quickly. CP9 is on the stage, and the Navy 6 style can be redeemed. The Navy 6 style is very powerful, and it is quite practical even in the Naruto world. If it weren't for Chakra, he could maintain 4 to 5 shadow clones to work together at the same time. In that way, there is no need to worry about update issues at all. Unlike now, there are 3 shadow clones and 1 real body. Although the number is not small, Akaban is responsible for the update of Naruto, while the others do other things like the update of One Piece etc., which is still a bit exhausting and tiring. Is Akaban here? A sound came from outside. Listening to the sound, it should be Gecko Yiwu. You go in and have a look, I don't know. Kurama Yunlang sighed. Since Akaban learned the Flying Thunder God Jutsu, he has a difficult time determining whether he is there or not. After all, he does not go back to the main gate. Come in. Akaban stuck his head out and beckoned to her. Yiwu carried something in her hand, and went into the room. Seeing the 4 Akaban posture, she couldn't help being startled. Afterwards, she couldn't help sighing, "You are really good at keeping so many clones working at the same time." The shadow clone training method is now popular, but after experimenting, everyone understands how much this training method requires chakra and spiritual will. Therefore, maintaining a shadow clone to accelerate training is so burdensome. But Akaban maintains 3 or 4 shadow clones to participate in the painting work every day, which shows how heavy the head is and the burden is. Yiwu looked at them and then at herself. She couldn't help but feel a little skeptical about life. They come from the same family that has a frail and sickly body, but looking at Akaban, she really couldn't help doubting her life. No need to think too much. Our Kurama clan has much higher mental power than normal. Akaban said humbly. Yiwu rolled her eyes hearing it as she didn't believe what he said. She sat down unceremoniously and then handed over the small package in her hand. Akaban didn't bother to pick it up, and while drawing, he said, "I didn't save you because I was expecting an exchange. Or are you not treating me as your friend? Of course it's nothing like that. My father must give it to you, besides, it's not a valuable thing, you just lack these." Yiwu spread out the package. "These are 2 title deeds. IMN. Akaban originally wanted to refuse. After all, his original intention was really to save Yiwu, but seeing the location of the 2 land deeds, he didn't know what to say. The land deed is very valuable, especially one of these 2 is almost the best shop in the Konoha area, and this land deed alone is worth a lot of money. The other is a land deed to a forest in a remote location. It can be said that the two land leases are of high value. But if it's just a land deed, he doesn't necessarily need it, but recently he just happened to need shops and forests, trees from the forests to be used to make wood carvings, and shops that will be used to sell figurines. He suddenly felt a little tangled. It's okay, besides, without you, even if I didn't die in the land of wind, I would be half disabled. Besides, what kind of politeness between friends? You just need it, our family just has it, then you just accept it. Yiwu is very clear. Although her strength is much stronger than before, it is at most special Chunin. Located in the land of wind interior, it is impossible for her to escape only by herself. It seems that uncle did some research on me. Akaban gave a wry smile. Speaking of this, it seems hypocritical if he doesn't accept it. But when Yiwu said this, she suddenly rubbed her hands embarrassedly and said, also, please help me ask Senior Kosuke to make a Zoro figurine with his three-sword style version. No problem. Akaban agreed that the new store was originally a shop that sold figures. It is normal to give some gifts in the early stage to increase popularity, not to mention that the two land leases of Yiwu are quite expensive. Great. In Yiwu's eyes, the value of the first batch of figures may be more than a land lease, and she will definitely be a proper ninja otaku in the future. Akaban thought for a while and then asked, is uncle interested in wood carving? Father. Yiwu wanted to refuse but thought of her father's weakening body because of the injury, so she fell into deep thought. In the past, he would definitely not be interested in it. But now. She remembered that yesterday, she saw a lot of comics in her father's room. So it is probably possible. Thinking of this, Yiwu thought for a second or two and replied, I'll go back and ask, if he wants, I will come over and tell you right away. Okay. Akaban responded to his efforts and completed another page of comics. Accumulate more comics updates, and he can spare some time to paint the wood carvings before the opening of the figurines comic shop, but this is the first batch of figurines comic shop and requires the greatest effort to complete. But besides these, there is one more thing. On Jiraiya's side, Akaban planned to send a shadow clone to see what happened, especially the bird that ate human devil fruit. He doesn't know if it died or was raised by Jiraiya. But this has to wait for the comics to be updated. By the evening, when the update was basically finished, Akaban sent a shadow clone with some comics to the sea Jiraiya. And this time, he doesn't need to hide. The shadow clone appeared directly next to Jiraiya. At this time, Jiraiya was also sitting outside a small room. And there was a gap where he was directly opposite, and the situation in the room could be seen from the gap. Inside the room is a human-shaped bird, and Jiraiya has a painting of Bird Lady in his hand. The figure has been drawn, except for facial features, hands, etc. I didn't expect you to be like this, your taste became so strong. Don't talk nonsense, Jiraiya was about to refute, and suddenly reacted, isn't he this Akaban's voice? He turned his head quickly and saw Akaban as expected. When he saw the comics in Akaban's hands, he even forgot about Akaban and quickly snatched the comics. This is all his treasure on the sea. Turning it over, he couldn't help complaining, Master Shinosuke hasn't updated his book yet. Not yet. Wow, a lot of comics, I'm so happy, Akaban, you are a savior. Jiraiya is going crazy too. For almost a week, the comics he had on hand had been turned into tatters. In the vast ocean, it is normal to sail for several days without seeing people, and all he can do is stare at this bird. Anyway, she is a humanoid female, and regardless of her origin, she looks pocket-sized and cute after transforming into a human form, with a different kind of beauty. The shadow clone took a look, nodded approvingly, and said, "Don't say anything else, your drawing skills have improved a lot. Hasn't your goal been achieved? Listen, is this human? Locking you at sea, seeing no one for more than a week, and only focusing on something, can also make rapid progress. To put it ugly, what's the difference between him and the labor camp now?" Jiraiya also complained in his heart and took those comics to one side and read it for himself. With the comics in hand, the bird lady was left behind. That's it for this part, guys. Hope you like the video. Like, share and subscribe the channel. And also tell me in the comment section down below if you have any recommendation. Thanks for watching.